He was actually kicked out by this powerful kick. Then everyone felt a gust of cold wind blowing against their scalps, and the door smashed the south wall of the meeting room, and it flew straight to the sky without losing momentum. It disappeared in an instant. Is this leg strength something that humans can do? Palestin, Sayu, Cheetle, Pijorn, and Sachu Kobayakawa were tense, and they immediately became vigilant. At the empty front entrance, a little old man in casual home clothes walked in with a blank expression. The horrific murderous intent was centered on him, sweeping past him, and the conference table seemed to be cracked to varying degrees because it couldn't bear his pressure. What a terrifying murderous aura. He says Roy Zoldyck is his grandson, so who is he? Is that the famous career one kill a day, Geno Zoldyck? My heart was horrified. Murderous intent came to my face. Sayu, Cheetle, Pijorn, Sachu Kobayakawa dared not move at all. Pariston also rarely put away his smile, his eyes fixed on Maha. His eyes were full of surprise. He couldn't help swallowing with a gudong. He had a feeling. This old man really wanted to kill him. And he seems to be able to do it. This kind of intuition. Paris is so big, he has never encountered it. Even in the face of Jin and Netero, he has never had this feeling. But today, Letty opened his eyes. Tread. Maha walked slowly. Every foot seemed to be stepping on the heartstrings of everyone, and then stood still, looking at Paris calmly across the long conference table channel. You were very courageous. Why don't you repeat what you just said? Old man, I'm hard of hearing. I can't hear clearly. What are you going to do to my grandson? I didn't think about it. Pa. Pariston just opened his mouth, and a big pussy appeared in his field of vision. Obviously the movement was very slow, and he even felt that he could dodge it easily. But I never thought that big tight pocket locked onto him like a positioning system, and no matter how hard he tried, he couldn't escape, so he could only look at his handsome face. I took this blow abruptly. There was a crisp sound of Pariston, with a man in a chair, was directly embedded in the wall behind. Seeing this, Sayu, Cheetle, Pijorn, Sachu Kobayakawa and others trembled, avoiding Maha's gaze, and lowered their heads. No. No. This person is absolutely impossible to be Geno Zoldyck. One slap can make Palestin like this. Isn't Geno Zoldyck so strong? So, who is he? The Zoldicks still have this creepy figure. Fear is spreading. Luckily, the president is still there. Okay, old man. Netero said quietly. This is the Hunter Association, not your home. It's not your turn to teach my subordinates. I've already given you face. Maha shook his hand and said calmly. This is not the Hunter Association, otherwise I would have killed him long ago. Cough cough. A strand of blood flowed out from the corner of his mouth. Pariston, who was embedded in the wall, moved his hands and feet, and pulled himself out. Coughing a few times while covering his chest with a sound, his eyes fixed on Maha. A shallow arc was drawn at the corner of his mouth, and he smiled. Thank you for not killing me, old man. It is an honor for me, Pariston, to see you here today. Tisk. Vice President, life is hard enough. Mahara pulled a chair, sat down with a big horse, put his legs on the desk, folded his hands on his lower abdomen, and shook his hands like no one else. He got up his chair. I'll give you another chance to vote again. Is it an exception to admit my grandson? Or is it an exception to admit my grandson? The old man is here watching you vote. Pariston, Sayu, Cheetle, Seitu Kobayakawa, Pijorn. Looking at Netero secretly. The corners of Netero's eyes twitched, and he said to Maha with a half smile. Once the decision is made, there is no reason to change it. Old man, if you are not satisfied, let's practice. Don't show off your power in this old man's territory, old thing. Practice well. I'm really afraid of you when I'm an old man. Maha snorted coldly and said, then don't blame my grandson for breaking the balance of the exam. You Hunter Association is useless, but blame my grandson for being too strong? It doesn't make sense. Then tell me what to do. Netero had cross veins on his forehead, and he gave Maha a sideways look. The clay figurine is still angry. Netero has already given enough face. Let Maha, an outsider, intervene in the affairs of their association. If Roy was not involved, Maha would not have this opportunity at all. Playing and playing, playing and playing. Maha also noticed that Netero was on the verge of breaking out, and immediately restrained himself a little, and said with a smile, reinforcement is okay, isn't it just some shit? I believe my grandson affordable. It's just that I specially gave my grandson strength. Do I have to give some compensation? How about it? Maha stretched out a hand and waved it in front of Netero and Pariston. Let me say the number, 50 billion. Send reinforcements as you please. Maid, co-author of our Hunter Association has to pay money and people. The conference room fell into silence for a moment. Cheadle, Pijorn, Sachu Kobayakawa, Sayu are silent. Pariston glanced at Netero and laughed. Since I proposed the plan, let me make the decision. Netero made a sullen face and kept silent, acquiescing. Seeing this, Pariston looked deeply at Maha and said, Old man, I will offer 60 billion. I don't know, are you satisfied? 6,600. Pariston, are you crazy? Sayu bared his teeth, raised his head to meet Pariston's eternal smile, shrunk his neck, and sat back on his raised buttocks. He understands. Pariston has made up his mind. Idiot. The extra 10 billion is an apology from Palestine to the other party, don't you understand this? Wuma Sachu Kobayakawa also noticed Sayu's change. It doesn't matter if the monkey can't sit still. Oh. It's okay to be stupid, I don't know what he was selected for the 12 earthly branches. Perhaps it was his relationship with Palestone, Cheadle added silently in his heart. As Netero's secretary and hardcore supporter, she knows a lot of inside information. Who is the person who wears the same pair of pants as the vice president? It's no secret here at Cheadle. Maybe only Pjorn, a simple douchebag, doesn't see this. The boy is very rich. Maha glanced at Pariston in surprise. The other party slapped him hard, but instead greeted him with a smile and gave him money. I have to say that being able to sit in the Hunter Association in the position of vice president, the other party is not useless. At least, more money. If I had known earlier, the old man, I should have asked for 100 billion. Maha muttered, looked up and saw that Netero's face was gradually turning black, and coughed dryly. Okay. 60 billion is 60 billion. Since I'm gone, old man, I won't disturb your meeting. The goal was achieved, and Maha immediately didn't stay. Stood up, hands behind his back, and walked towards the empty conference room. Hey, I said why the Hunter department is so boring, so it's because of the door. There is no door, it's cool. Hee hee. That's right, it's cool. Transferring an income of 60 billion, can you not be cool, you old man? Netero watched Maha go away, with a gloomy face that dripped water. Now the Hunter Association has lost both its wife and its soldiers. Both inside and outside are at a loss. HMPH, Pariston, you make a plan, you choose a candidate. The Hunter test is still in progress, and at this time, there is no time for them to waste. After Netero put down these words, he felt a bit depressed, and he was too lazy to stay in the meeting room any longer, so he called the Domian people out of everyone's sight. The oppressive and dreary atmosphere in the conference room was also swept away, returning to normal. Oh my god, it's so scary. Pjorn patted his chest, let out a long sigh of relief, flashed her big watery eyes, and looked towards Paris Passage. Hey, Pariston. Who was that old man just now? It's scary. First rule out Geno Zoldyck. Cheadle pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and said in a deep voice. I once met Geno Zoldyck with the president. He has white hair, but he is not bald. Then it can only be Geno Zoldyck's elder. Sachu Kobayakawa folded his arms and analyzed. Exclude another Jaeger Zoldyck. This man is Jianuo's father and the president's best friend. It's a pity that he died after returning from the Dark Continent. That is to say. The other party is likely to be Jianuo's grandpa. Older than the president's generation, that's why Quan Zhong tolerated him in every possible way. Am I right, Pariston? As expected of you, Master Talker. Palestine felt the burning pain from his face, a hint of predation flashed in his smile, facing the gazes of his colleagues, he said softly, his name is Maha Zoldyck. Geno's grandfather, and the ancestor of the Zoldyck family. Ancestor. Without the pressure of Maha and Netero, the monkey couldn't collapse anymore, and looked at the Paris Passage in disbelief. Are you kidding me? Didn't it say that the Zoldyck family has a long history, going back 300 years? If he is some kind of ancestor of the Zoldyck family, wouldn't it mean that the other party lived to be more than 300 years old? More than 300 years old? What kind of concept is that? The little rabbit Pjorn was startled. His drooping ears suddenly stood up. Beside her, Sachu Kobayakawa and Cheadle, who have always been known for their deep palaces, were also taken aback. Looking at Pariston suspiciously. It's hard to imagine that someone can really lie from 300 years ago to the present. But you may not know that there is a kind of grain in this world, longevity rice. Pariston was not at all surprised that Pjorn, Cheadle and the others would react in this way. He glanced at them meaningfully and explained. It is rumored that as long as you eat this long-lived rice, you can increase your lifespan by hundreds of years. So it's not uncommon for the ancestors of the Zoldyck family to survive to this day. Damn. There really is such a magical thing. Sayu was startled, and jumped up, staring at the passage of Paris with red eyes. You must know where the rice of grows, right? Paris. Ristone. With one word, the world was shocked. No one wants to live forever. Polystone ignited the greed deep in the hearts of several colleagues with just one sentence, even Cheadle, who had always been against him. All of them showed a trace of longing, which shows how strong this vice president's ability to confuse people's hearts is. Hee. It's a pity that I want to live forever. I can't do it in the world. Periston smiled at everyone, stretched out a finger, pointed to the sky, and said quietly. Right above our heads, the dark continent. Cheadle, Piorn, Sachu Kobayakawa, Sayu. Doesn't that mean you didn't say anything? The monkey gave Periston a blank look, and said dully, going to that ghostly place, isn't it the same as sending you to your death? I'm afraid that before I find the longevity rice, it will be eaten by the monsters living there. It's good that you know. Periston ignored the disappointment of everyone, and clapped his hands. Then everyone. Get down to business. Who wants to go to the reinforcement test? Don't look at me. Don't look at me. I still have prisoners who haven't been interrogated. Paris just finished the call. Pijorn, Cheadle, and Sachu Kobayakawa all, wandering in the sky. Sayu was the only one left, glared at them angrily, slapped the table and said, I'll go. Maid. Just let me know this Roy Zoldyck. Since he is the president's favorite person, we can't let him become bigger. As a spy placed inside the association by Mr. Byongda, Sayu still has this awareness. You are such a good dog. Periston looked at Sayu with a smile and said, then please. Money doesn't matter, it's better to get more things from that Roy Zoldyck. It's hard to come across such an interesting toy. This exciting feeling goes back more than 10 years before. The first time I met that man, Kim Freeze. Don't worry, leave it to me. Sayu gave Paris a veiled wink. Here to test, not for anything else, only for one purpose. I will block that blind man in the test, so that he will not pass the test. The monkey smiled ferociously, and the old man with a shoehorn face pulled back. After a brief greeting to the participants, I left the meeting room and headed straight to the third level of the Hunter test venue, Trap Tower. I remembered that there are still a few prisoners who have not been interrogated, and they were withdrawn earlier. Sachu Kobayakawa pushed his chair and stood up, glanced at Periston, nodded slightly at him, and left the floor. Followed by Cheadle. Piorn. In an instant, Periston was the only one left in the huge conference room. Zishu sat on his seat with a smile on his face, slowly took out a silk scarf from his jacket pocket to wipe off the bloodstains hanging from the corner of his mouth, and looked up at Roy in the picture. At the end of the video, the blind man was fluent pulled out the stick knife. It's not so easy to deal with. That's fine. The harder it is to deal with, the more interesting it is. I seem to have found another big toy that can compete with you. He. Yin Cece's laughter echoed. A group of crows flew by outside the window, as if they were frightened, quack, shouted a few times, fluttered their wings, and floated down a few black crows. Feather. At this time, the trap tower. After talking with Netero on the phone, Lieber asked for Roy's bank card number through the microphone, and immediately transferred 10 billion to him. Drip. Your account with the end number 7086 has transferred a sum of 10 billion cash. Please check. It's quite efficient. Roy's eyes flickered, thinking. Is it because I want to lose the other party to be the test examiner, and I guess it's not the money. It's a pity that the words that are spoken are just splashed water. I guess his teacher Tianwei's face. Roy just thought about it, and then he let go of his domineering arrogance, and retracted his fingers. Seeing this scene, Sa Si and all the candidates breathed a sigh of relief. Damn. I don't know if I was at the same time as Mr. Tianwei, it's a disaster or a blessing because of him. Indeed, many people passed the first 2 rounds of exams, but they were forced to pass out every now and then. It's okay to say it's a disaster. Ahem, then. Let's start the exam now. Sachi glanced at Roy and coughed dryly. All candidates immediately woke up from the coma, and raced against the clock to search for the secret door, leading to the interior from the top of the trap tower. I rely on, squeak, as secret doors are discovered one after another, there are fewer and fewer candidates standing on the top of the trap tower. Kurapika has been paying attention to Roy's movements. I saw him holding a stick knife in one hand, picking off a wine gourd with the other hand, drinking comfortably, admiring the scenery on the top of the tower. Looking at him, he also remotely smiled at him. Kurapika quickly returned a smile, imitating Roy. Not blindly rummaging around like Leorio. Hey, Kurapika, why didn't you look for it? Leorio sweated all over his work, and when he turned around, he saw Kurapika looking at him like a fool. Kurapika gave him a blank look. Send him a word directly, wait. Sure enough, a shout of excitement reached the ears of several people. The dog nose gone is online. Uncle, I found 5 hidden doors. The hedgehog-haired kid squatted in front of a square floor tile, waving excitedly at Roy. Roy smiled. Good dog. He tied the wine gourd around his waist with one hand, and came to Gon with a stick and knife in his hand, beating and beating. Hey, let's go too. Kurapika pouted in Gon's direction and walked straight past Leorio. The shame of being crushed by IQ hit. Leorio pursed his lips angrily, thanking him for being insulted so much that he followed Kurapika's footsteps again. 5 hidden doors, 1 Japanese. It opened well. Roy wiped Gon's hedgehog hair with his hand. The little boy grinned, revealing his pair of big white teeth. Hey, uncle, here, and here. Are all secret doors. Gon pointed out 5 locations. These 5 locations are all gathered together. It's hard not to wonder if there is a trap underneath. There are 5 of them in such a small area. I think it's suspicious. Leorio was just riding on his face by Kurapika to show off his IQ. Leorio was holding a briefcase in one hand and putting the other in his pocket. He really regarded himself as Sherlock Holmes, and analyzed carefully. Maybe there are all traps here. That depends on one's luck and strength. Kurapika, Gon, and Leorio all secretly glanced at Roy. Teacher Tianwei must be fine, and I don't know if he has any new prophecies. Don't worry, there are no traps under the 5 doors. Noticing the cautious eyes of the trio, Roy said with a smile, but there are 5 secret doors, 4 people, and 1 door is vacant. It's a bit of a waste. With a sound of an armed sexual thought thread popped out from Roy's fingers, and appeared in front of Tompa like lightning at lightning speed. It wrapped around his waist, flew over with him. Bah. The person was still looking for the secret door 1 second, and arrived in front of Roy the next second. Tompa raised his head to meet Roy's pale eyes, and was so scared that he didn't pee his pants on the spot. Damn it. How can I be so unlucky to be targeted by this big devil? Tompa is about to cry. Obviously he hid well, so he deliberately waited for Roy to go down the trap tower first, so as to stagger with him. Clinker, the plan can't keep up with the change. Just talk. What can I do? Wani and Landing Sound looked at Roy bitterly and said, Mr. Tianwei, I didn't ask you to provoke you, did I? Who said you didn't mess with me? Roy glared at him, stretched out a finger, pointed at the sun, and said unhappily, the weather is so good today, you didn't say hello to me when you saw me. Are you looking down on me? Tompa, Gon, Leorio, Kurapika. All turned into beanies. Can you find a decent excuse next time please? Hey, Tompa-san, it's a secret door for 1 person, not a secret door for 5 people. Gon stretched out a finger to remind Tompa. The child is too kind. That is because he is young, so Tianwei the teacher will not care about him. Otherwise, with your crooked ass, it's hard not to let people think about it. Do you not want to live anymore? That's right. Tompa was stunned for a moment, and his eyes lit up in an instant. F*K. How did I forget this? 1 person and 1 secret door means that everyone is not in the same room, so I'm so scared. Tompa suddenly felt that he was doing it again, and said to Roy with a smile, I'm sorry, Mr. Tianwei, although I really want to explore the trap tower with you. But you see, it's not allowed, it's a pity. Made. A secret door and a road, you take your Yangguan road, I cross my single plank bridge, everyone is different from each other. Even if you were at the end of the field, if you can't see me, you can't do anything about me. It's a pity. Roy looked at Tompa with a half smile and said, it's okay, since you want to explore with me so much, then I will grant your wish. Let's go. The stick knife in his hand lightly hit the floor, and the secret doors at the feet of Tompa, Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika opened all at once. The 4 of them immediately felt their bodies sink, and they fell down together with Roy. Bang. The sole of the foot hit the ground, and there was a muffled sound. In the dark and confined space, the light suddenly turned on. Gon, Tompa, Leorio, Kurapika looked around vigilantly. Their eyes were fixed, and they were all stunned. Why are you here? I should be the one asking this question instead. Several people stared at each other. Looking at each other, looking in a certain direction. Under the light, a blind man with a height of 2.5 meters, holding a staff and a knife, looked at them with a half smile. Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika smiled awkwardly on the spot and scratched the back of their heads. Only a certain old fat man hugged himself miserably. Open your mouth and want to cry. Go to TM's Hunter to test. Can the secret door still be connected together? Dog Day's plan. Boss. I feel like he is scolding us. In the monitoring room at the bottom of the trap tower, the prison guard gave Tompa a look. The fat man looked familiar. His name is Tompa, and this is his 35th Hunter test. 35 times? Oh, I remembered, it turned out to be him, a waste. Waste? With a click, Libo bit off a piece of Dafu biscuit, swallowed it in his stomach, and said meaningfully, he is not a waste. Although I don't know what is shining about him, but it can be seen from the fact that Roy Zoldyck insists on tying him to his side. He is extraordinary. As an examiner for the Hunter test, no one is simple. Liber pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, and said to the two stunned younger brothers behind him, "Go down and get ready." Yes. The door of the monitoring room was pushed open, and the rest of Liber stared at the Roy, Tonpa, Gon, Leorio, Kurapika group in a daze. After a while, he seemed to have made a decision, reached out and pressed the button. Pressed a button. The screen on the monitor turned around, revealing a corner. It was 5 prisoners in blue uniforms, with handcuffs on their wrists. They are of different heights. Through certain protrusions, it can be vaguely seen that there are women among them. And the one in the lead, with a burly figure. Even the prison clothes could not cover his muscular chest muscles, looked up at the camera. Knowing that it was their turn to appear, he raised his wrist at Libo. "I've been waiting for this day for a long time. Please, director, take off our handcuffs." "Of course." Liber's faint voice came through the microphone. "Do you still remember the commutation rules I made for you?" "This. I know." Batut lifted his hood, revealing. With his shiny bald head, he smiled ferociously and said, "Hold the other party for an hour, and the sentence will be commuted by 1 year. Thanks to Director Liber for the gift, let us shorten our stay by 72 years. The exam rule is to pass the trap tower within 72 hours. The 5 Batuts obviously intend to directly. Roy, Tonpa, Gon, and Ray who have entered their level. Ori and Kurapika dragged death here. However, confidence is a good thing. Can it be done?" Liber declined to comment. He folded his arms and leaned back on the chair, and said in a deep voice, "Now the rules have changed. It's not a year, but if you hold the other party for an hour, your sentence will be reduced by 5 years. That is to say, wait a minute, if the 5 of you can hold back the 5 incoming candidates until they are eliminated. I'm here to assure you that one of the 5 of you will be released after serving your sentence." 5 hours? Ex-convict? Batut and the 4 prisoners behind him are all one. Then, several pairs of eyes suddenly released an unprecedented scorching light. "I've had enough of this bird place. Hee, you were right. I thought I would never have a chance to go out in this life. I didn't expect to usher in a turning point so soon. Ah, you smell? Can you hear the wind? I seem to have smelled the sweet air outside." "Bullshit. You just want to play with women, the perverted murderer. Be careful and get caught right after you go out." "Don't worry, it won't happen this time. It's impossible for a person to fall in the same place, right, Batdude?" The 4 prisoners standing behind the bald head couldn't hold back their excitement, and they had already started to agitate. The words "released after serving their sentence" undoubtedly seemed like a bucket of chicken blood was poured on this group of prisoners. On the prisoner. Bato laughed ferociously. "Yeah, I'm going out, but it doesn't seem that simple. There will be no pies in the sky, and Batdude is also the old man of the trap tower. He knows very well that Liber will not send such a big gift for no reason. In other words, Director Liber, there must be something wrong with the 5 candidates we are going to face." Bato's eyes are very sharp, looking at Lib through the camera. Lib took a bottle of Coca-Cola, put the big fortune pancake into his belly, and said with a smile, "You are getting better and better, Batut. Indeed, among the candidates you will face next, there is one guy who seems to me to be particularly tricky. When you meet him, I advise you not to be careless. Don't try to compete with him. It's better to play tricks with him, do you understand?" "Sure enough. This is a poisonous pie." Batdude's face darkened, and he asked solemnly, "Director Liber, for those candidates, we are also brothers in the trenches. You can tell me exactly how strong that tricky guy is. How strong? How strong would you say someone who can fight our president twice and still not fall behind?" Libo put his hands behind his head, leaned back against the chair, and said with a thud, "At least I am far from being an opponent." Batut also has Seza, Chawa, Lelut, and Johnny behind him. Everyone froze on the spot. I don't know how many words Mother F asterisk Kerr came out of my heart. I didn't say it to the outside world. "Then you still want us to fight with him?" Seeing that he was bigger than Batdude, he lived up to his name. Bluffing and yelling at the camera, "Boss Liber, what are you doing? I'll change someone. I can't accept this vote." He. "Director Liber, I don't think I'm up to this task. Please adjust it for me too." Lelut took off his hood and winked at the camera. "Glamorous, for example. What she is good at is not shopping with those stinky men, but the psychological game. After all, before she was imprisoned, she was a psychiatrist." "Ah. Are you afraid?" After reacting from the initial shock, Johnny licked his lips and smiled excitedly. "Since none of you are willing to confront him, let me do it. To be honest, I haven't tasted what the strongest human blood tastes like." Since someone can make 2 moves against him and still not lose the wind, it just happens. It's cheaper for me. Air. You're an idiot. Didn't you get caught by Lieber in the end? Batu gave a cold glance at Johnny, looked seriously at Lieber behind the camera and said, are we out of options? Whether it's Chawa, Johnny, or Lelut, or the unknown Seiza who pretends to be a little transparent, they are all the talents in this prison. Since Lieber can bring the 5 of them together, thinking about it, I also agree with them, there is no better candidate than them. Sure enough. This is an order, not a discussion with you. Lieber pulled his face and said, don't forget your identities. Do it, or stay here until you die, you choose. Then there's no other way. The left and right are dead, so it's better to have a short pain. Actually, we don't have to be pessimistic. Badut touched his chin and said in a deep thought, if you can't beat that guy, just admit defeat. Seize the remaining 4 opportunities and win 3. Or, if you run out of their time, you can also eliminate them. So. Badut glanced over Seiza, Chahu, Lelut, and Johnny, clenched his fists, and said in a deep voice, done. Okay. The dead bird turned upside down and rushed at him. Eh. I said it earlier, if you leave that person to me, I will dig out his heart. You. Forget it, then I'll do it as hard as I can. But let's say it first, sister, I'm not good at fighting people. 5 fists collided. In the face of freedom and life, how many people chose freedom after all? Very good. Lieber saw all this through the camera, glanced at Johnny for the last time, and reminded him, remember. Don't try to compete with that person. Use your brain more. Even I think Badut's proposal just now, to give up directly when meeting him is a good choice. On this point, Director Lieber, please rest assured. Badut looked straight at Lieber's fox eyes, and said with a sneer, we want to win more than anyone else. None of the prisoners who can be put into the trap tower is a good stubble. The minimum sentence years are 120 years. There are no accidents in this life, and they can't get out alive, but now it is obvious that there are a broad avenue appears at the foot, fools will not go. Well. Then let me wait and see. Lieber stopped talking immediately. As an examiner, he disclosed the candidate's information to Badut and others in advance. Strictly speaking, he is already suspected of cheating. But he spent all 10 billion, if he doesn't do something, how can he be worthy of his own wallet? Bah, it's the president's wallet. Lieber pushed the flirtatious glasses on the bridge of his nose, and clicked the button on the console. The screen switched back to the examinee's side. Roy led Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and Tonpa to meet again after an embarrassing short separation. To divert their attention and devote all their energy to the next test. Uncle, there doesn't seem to be an exit in this room. Is there a hidden door? Gon moved his nose, looked around carefully, and glanced at an original column similar to a trash can placed in the corner, and shouted. He said, hey, look quickly, there are words. Kurapika and Leorio hurriedly followed Gon to the past. And found that there were 5 timing bracelets on the cylinder, and on the side next to the wall, there was a line of small characters written. The road to the majority. You 5 must obey the majority with the minority, and go through the many levels from here to the end. That is to say, we may need to cooperate with you in the next step. Kurapika pondered for a while, as he expected. From the red microphone inside the cylinder, Lieber's voice came out. That's it. In this trap tower, there are many different paths preset. The clearance conditions set for each path are different. The few of you chose the path of the minority obeying the majority. This is a super difficult challenge that we must work together to pass smoothly. Okay. I wish you all the best of luck. The weak electric current dissipated, and Lieber's voice disappeared in the air as the electric current dissipated. Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and even Tonpa, who understood the rules of the exam, all looked at Roy. It seems that in their group, there is no minority in the majority. Only the majority obeys the minority, only reasonable. I recommend Uncle, I will choose whatever Uncle chooses. Gon looked at Roy with a smile, and tilted his ass, without hesitation. You guys really know how to choose. Leorio rubbed Gon's prickly hair with his hands, then turned his head and gave Roy a thumbs up. Mr. Tisk. Why do I smell a dog? Smell. It seems to be licking a dog. There are 2 more. Kurapika looked at Gon and Leorio contemptuously, and put the dog leash on himself. Without further ado, he nodded at Roy. Teacher Tianwei, I'm in trouble. Tonpa. Why do you do this with 1 or 2? As a newcomer killer, it's very difficult for me. The troublemaker's soul is ready to move. Tonpa's mouth twitched fiercely, and he bumped into Roy's pale and blind eyes head-on. He quickly and skillfully put himself on a dog leash, licked his face, and smiled at Roy. He smiled and said, Teacher Tianwei, tell me. I'll do whatever you want me to do with Tonpa. Never say a single word. This guy, Tompa, is really good at licking. Kurapika and Leorio glanced at Wanin's first-year student. Maybe this year he will be able to get rid of the title of lost student and successfully obtain a hunter license. However, the original you are not like this. Roy looked at Tompa with a half-smile and made Tompa's heart tremble. Tompa seemed to understand something, hurriedly took a chronograph watch, held it in both hands and handed it to Roy. But Roy stuck out a finger and tapped it lightly. A flying finger gun shot the watch into pieces on the spot. Then the flying finger gun entwined with Roy's ferocious thought power continued unabated, and hit the camera with a bang. Under surveillance in the room, Libo felt a sudden blur in front of his eyes. The Dafu biscuit in his mouth was not delicious after chewing. Roy Zoldyck, you really don't show any sympathy. Sensibility. 10 billion is just to buy me not to break the rules of the game. As for the others. This chronograph watch looks like handcuffs, and it really treats us candidates as prisoners. Roy withdrew his fingers expressionlessly. Tompa made a plop, and sat down on the ground. I was frightened by Roy's sudden 10 fingers. My legs are weak. Mom, Roy Zoldyck. You are a devil. If you don't want to bring it, why didn't you say it earlier? Tompa-san, are you alright? Gon stretched out a hand and pulled Tompa up from the ground. Leorio and Kurapika looked at each other. After what Roy said, the chronograph watch really looked like handcuffs. Immediately, he lost the interest in wearing it. But in this way, without the wristwatch, you can't vote. Teacher Tiano. How to do this? I can't even open the secret door and get out of this room, so what should I do? Except for the fearful Tompa cat who is behind Gon, not daring to look at Roy. Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika watched Roy cautiously. Roy took off the wine gourd, raised his head and took a sip of the clear and sweet mountain spring water, smiled and said, it's very simple. Just shout, open sesame, to this room, and the door will open naturally. Gon, Leorio, Kurapika, you look at me, I look at you, looking at each other. Roy smiled, but didn't explain any more, and called out Tompa directly. Tompa. You come and shout, Lee, it's time for a dog, damn guy. Why does he keep biting me? Tompa was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood. He timidly walked out from behind Gon, obeyed Roy's order, and stammered, open sesame. Suddenly a knife pierced the air. Gon, Tompa, Kurapika, and Leorio only felt that a bright light flashed away in front of them. Then blinked again, and they saw. An incomparably sharp slash hit the wall in front of him. I didn't see any movement from Roy. He slowly put the knife back into its sheath, took off the wine gourd and took another sip of wine, heaved a sigh of relief. Open. With a sound of boom, there was a whine from the wall. Roy directly cut it open, revealing the deep passage behind it. Is this the so-called open sesame? Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and Tompa all swallowed their saliva. This kind of violent way of opening the door is really very Teacher Dao. Let's go. There is still some garbage waiting to be disposed of ahead, don't waste time. The stick knife hit the ground, and the blind man lifted his foot and stepped over the broken stone gate. He took the lead, knocking and beating all the way, and walked into the depths of the passage, leaving behind a mountain-like back for several people. Actually, we should have gotten used to it. Kurapika suddenly broke the silence. Leorio glanced at him. What are you used to? Idiot. Don't you call yourself a smart person? Kurapika glanced blankly at Leorio, then at Gon who was scratching the back of his head, and said in a deep voice, I'm used to the strength of Mr. Treat us as friends. Aren't we already friends? Gon widened his eyes, as if he was surprised why Kurapika would say such a thing, and ran towards Roy on two short legs, chasing. He shouted at the top of his voice, Uncle, Kurapika said, you didn't treat us as friends before, is it true? Leorio, Kurapika. You are a child who can do reading comprehension. Do you want to have such a big mouth and say everything? Kurapika was dizzy. He glanced anxiously at Roy who had walked out 5 meters away. The blind man smiled lightly, of course. The world of adults only has interests, have friends. He didn't say anything wrong. Uncle, you are too much, haha, is it too much? It's right to be too much. Roy reached out and caught Gon under his arm. Compared to a trash father named Jin. Even if I was too much, I couldn't compare he. Hey, I said Kurapika, I suddenly think it's better for you to earn more money in the future. Leorio pulled the sunglasses on the bridge of his nose, and said solemnly, for Mr. Tianwei, if you have money, you will have friendship. Money doesn't understand anything? Do I need you to remind me? Kurapika gave Leorio a weird look. Being taught how to get along by an idiot. Why does the more he looks at Leorio, the more he looks like? Farewell. Too lazy to pay attention to him, he simply quickened his pace to catch up with Roy and Gon. Hey, you guys haven't replied to me yet. Finally caught a chance to show off IQ, is it easy for me? Leorio glared at Kurapika angrily, and shouted, wait for me. Carrying the briefcase, he strode up to follow. You can't see me. You can't see me. With a glimmer of peripheral vision, Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio left the room and walked into the passage. Tompa whispered quietly, Mi's cat is in the corner of the room, and he has made up his mind. He will stay in this room and wait for the 72 hours to run out, and he will be eliminated from then on. The title of Rookie Killer cannot be disgraceful. With Roy, the evil devil, Tompa knows that he has no chance to make trouble, so he just messed it up. But he didn't think about it. With a sound of a familiar black thread entered his field of vision, without even intending to get his consent, it was directly wrapped around his waist. Then he pulled. Tompa found out with grief and indignation that he was arrested again. Dao. Listen to me say, thank you, plop. Tompa clutched his head at Roy's feet, and before he could open his mouth to cry out the pain, Roy lifted his foot and kicked him to the entrance of the passage, almost falling into the cliff below. To be a dog is to have the consciousness of being a dog, Tompa. Roy withdrew his foot and glanced at the opposite cliff. At this time, a series of footsteps sounded in the passage on the opposite cliff. 5 prisoners wearing gray hoods, with a few pieces of blue prison uniforms faintly exposed under the brim, came out from the depths of the passage, separated by the ring as far away from Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio. It seems that they are the examiners of this test. Kurapika carefully observed Batut and Seiza. There are tall and short, fat and thin, and even faintly visible, seeing a woman whose physical signs resembles a woman. Secretly guessing in my heart that the rules of this round of exams may not be simple. It's just examiner. Just a few rubbish, don't insult the word examiner. Roy sneered. He didn't need the panel at all. He casually glanced at Batu and the others, and got a thorough understanding of the strength of these people. Badut, Seiza, Zawa, Leilut, and Johnny are behind. The 5 of them just came to the edge of the cliff and stood still. When they met Roy's pale and blind eyes, their pupils shrank sharply. Suddenly felt a chill from the soles of the feet to the tinling guy. I shivered uncontrollably. Blind man? What a terrifying murderous look. He should be the guy Director Lieber said can fight back and forth with Chairman Netero. Ah ha ha ha, it's really scary. I just like this kind of challenge. Batot, leave this guy to me, I'll kill him. Crack. With a sound, a stone wall next to the cliff was directly taken off by Johnny, a perverted murderer. Without the jailer's help, he broke free from the handcuffs and lifted his hood, revealing his melancholy and maddened face. Blonde hair and blue eyes. Stretch out your arms, your muscles bulge, and a circle of golden stubble appears in a mess under the light. Leorio's complexion changed, and he blurted out his name. He is Johnny. That notorious perverted murderer. Your reaction is a bit big. Kurapika gave Leorio a blank look. Do you know the details of the other party? He looks a bit scary. Gon also noticed the other party, scratched his face, and searched for a vivid word, and after a few seconds, his eyes lit up. There is. Yeah. He looks like a kingfish. Maybe a little scarier than a kingfish. God TM kingfish. Don't think of yourself as a seasoned fisherman just because you are holding a fishing rod. With a slap, he slapped Gon on the forehead, and the little kid with the hedgehog head stared at Leorio aggrievedly. You hit me again. You deserve it. Leorio glared at him angrily, spitting and spitting wildly. Johnny, he's not a kingfish. But a demon. You may not know yet, but he also has a nickname, corpse dissection expert. What? Shit-splitting expert. Roy lifted his toe and poked Tompa's ass. You are good at this. What is this, Johnny? I will leave it to you in a while. What to me? Tompa jumped up and shook his head like a rattle. I'm no match for that guy. Dissection expert Johnny, Tompa has also heard about this deed. He is the most ferocious murderer in the history of crime in Saba City. His personality is bloody and violent, and his 3 views are perverted and distorted. In his short criminal career, he killed at least 146 people abruptly, and every victim was brutally dismembered by him. Moreover, these victims are regardless of gender, age, and the youngest is even less than 1 year old. Just such a pervert. You leave it to me. Sorry. I, Tompa, first, dizzy, as a respect. Before Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. Even Roy could react. Tompa slammed into the wall with a bang. Damn, the wall trembled. Tompa felt his eyes go dark, and then the world spun, and he fell to the ground with a plop, and gave Roy, Gon, Kurapika. Leorio is dumbfounded. What is this guy doing? Hitting the wall directly is too hard on myself. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio all turned into P's eyes. You look at me. I look at you, looking at each other. Roy touched his chin, came back to his senses, and looked at Tompa thoughtfully. For a moment just now, he felt Tompa's attributes flicker. That's his talent title, seeking advantages and avoiding disadvantages, played a role. Advantages and avoidance of disadvantages. Adversary in danger. Tompa is unwilling to face Johnny, and he is unwilling to face me. So he spontaneously chose the trick of hitting the wall and fainting. Sure enough. Take him to the Dark Continent, and you are responsible for your own safety. Roy's eyes were full, and he had a calculation in his heart. But on the opposite side of them, Batut, Johnny and others saw that Tompa chose to explode himself. At the same time, I was stunned for a moment, and then I realized. I couldn't stop being excited. The opposite side has reduced staff. 5v4. We are born to win a game. So next. As long as we win 2 games, we will be released from prison. Thank you for the surprise sent by Wanian Ladisheng. You are such a good person. Ho 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 ho. Duzi. What's the candidate's name? In the president's office, Netero kept a distance from a certain old man across the desk, and glanced at Tompa in the screen disgustedly. The ordinary boy is really pleasing to the eye. As long as it's not good for my grandson. Don't care if he's a pig or a dog, you'll be pleasing to your eyes, right? Ma-ha took 2 bites from a piece of watermelon, pouted, and the watermelon seeds were spit into the trash can by him like a bullet. Netero didn't get angry. Maid, Renren passed by. I heard that the Domian people found Tompa's information report. No 16 Tompa has participated in 34 tests in the past, this issue is his the 35th time. Hey, isn't that a piece of trash? It doesn't affect my grandson to pass the test with him or without him. Maha chuckled, shook his hands and threw the watermelon rind into the trash can, and took advantage of the opportunity to touch Netero. On the sofa, Netero seems to be unable to hold back after rubbing his hands. If the paws are dirty, you can chop them off. Netero sneered with a black face. Some people get more and more confused the older they get. Hunter tests and nothing happened. There must be something extraordinary about such a person. So. Some people might as well. My grandson has brains and knows to tie that Tompa by his side. Are you praising my grandson or scolding me? Maha curled his lips and said nothing. He squinted at Tompa, and had to admit that what the boy said made sense. Secretly. I'll have to ask Roy later. As for the other party fainting, which caused the downsizing of his grandson, Maha didn't take it to heart at all. The left and right are just rubbish that can't be seen, and it can turn the sky upside down. Now we just have to wait for the earthly branches of Lao Shizi to appear on the stage. Maybe it will be worth seeing. Said that Cao Cao read Cao Cao more than Maha was waiting in the office of the vice president of the Hunter Association. Pariston poured a glass of red wine and watched the TV in front of him. Watching Tompa blew himself up with interest, he touched his phone and dialed a phone call out. Have you arrived yet? There was a faint, buzzing sound from the other end of the phone. That's the howling of the airship's propellers smashing the air. I have arrived. Just watch it in the office. There will never be a character like Roy Zoldyck in the Hunter Association. There won't be any now, and there won't be any in the future. Let's just put it this way. The sky. The wind is strong. It's dead. Beep. The phone hung up. The top of the trap tower. A flying ship hovers above the sky. With a sound of the cabin door opened, and a golden hoop protruded from the inside. Followed by a monkey in a black and yellow martial arts uniform. Holding a stick in his hand. The end of the stick is engraved with the 3 big characters, Ruyi stick. After the monkey makes a round with one arm, there will be gusts of wind. Just stop here, Sayu, go down by myself. The Ruyi stick suddenly stopped, and the monkey said coldly. From a height of 100 meters, he jumped and fell heavily towards the bottom of the trap tower. With Netero, the incomprehensible chairman, it seems that the 12 earthly branches will not take the usual path. Seeing that there are humans who dare to intrude into their territory, a group of man-eating birds flapped their wings, opened their bloody mouths, and bit at Sayu. But I heard several sonic booms exploded in succession. All the piranhas were smashed into blood mist by Sayu with a stick. Do not bother me. It's not you who want to knock, but the blind. Boss, something is wrong outside. Look. The 2 prison guards who carried out Liber's order and released Bado, Seiza and others are back. Like door gods, the 2 stood behind Liber on one left and one on the right, pointing at a screen and shouting. Liber swallowed the Dafu biscuit with a glass of Coke. As a warrant, he is either eating or on the way to eat. The key is that his body does not gain weight, and there is no one else. Hurl, I see it. Isn't it just a flying ship? What does it look like to be surprised? Don't even look at it, just listen to the humming sound from the air shredded by the propeller. Liber can also know that someone is visiting his trap tower. No, boss. Damn it, there's a monkey jumping directly from the sky. Here it comes. Is it a monster? It's not. It seems to be Sayu-sama from the 12 Earthly Branches. The heroic figure of Shenhu smashing a group of man-eating birds with a stick was transmitted into the monitoring room through the camera. Li Bo's fox eyes froze, he raised his buttocks, and sat up straight. Unexpectedly, it's really Sayu-sama. Liber stroked his coquettish coxcomb hair, his eyes flickered, and he glanced at the screen where Roy, Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, and Tompa were, and gradually returned to the scene. Come to think of it, I understand that the other party's trip. I'm afraid it's not for his trap tower. But for the man in the picture, Roy Zoldyck. Let me tell you, the association is not the kind of person who just suffers from boredom and doesn't let a fart go. Give 10 billion to the other party for free, so naturally you won't let the other party get it comfortably. But Liber was wrong. Not 10 billion but 60 billion. 60 billion to buy a novice Xiaobai failed the hunter test. If it is reported, V5, Bardo, Kajin, and even the whole world will be shocked. It's a pity that Liber didn't know about it yet, so he waved his hand to signal the two Henga generals to open the secret door and let Sayu into the trap tower. Bang. The thick stone door was closed heavily. A monkey wearing a golden hoop, with eyes hanging down, walked in 5 people and 6, followed by Libo's 2 younger brothers. Gouged him the Rui stick in his hand, and the golden hoop on his head. I don't know, I thought he was a street gangster who came out of some corner. The walking posture and appearance are really unflattering. But he is Sayu, the Shen monkey of the 12 Earthly Branches, the director of the trap tower. The immediate boss of the 1-star bounty hunter Liber. I'm not late, am I? Libo hurriedly got up to greet him. Sayu didn't show any politeness to him at all, and directly occupied the magpie's nest, occupied Libo's position, reached out from the snack basket, picked a piece of Big Fortune biscuit, stuffed it into his mouth, and chewed it. When he woke up, the scum fell all over the corners of his mouth. There was no such thing as eating. No. The game has just started. Like his younger brother, Libo stood behind Sayu and said respectfully. Sayu bared his teeth. And spat out the half-eaten Dafu biscuit. Why is Guba so unpalatable? The corner of Libo's mouth twitched slightly, and he remained silent. Sayu didn't care about him, even if he saw that his face was not very good looking. He didn't have the slightest intention of apologizing to a subordinate. Eyes on Roy. The blind man who was listening to Badut explaining the rules boredly raised his head and took a sip of wine. His expression changed, as if he had sensed something. He turned his head and glanced at the camera. Those pale pupils were reflected in Sayu's pupils, which gave the monkey an illusion for a moment. It was like facing Netero. The hippie's smile was put away instantly, and a little nervousness was born instinctively. The intuition is quite sharp. The Rui stick is placed beside him, and Sayu can grab it in his hand as soon as he stretches out his hand, which seems to provide him with a lot of sense of security. He is Roy Zoldyck. You don't need to remind me. Sayu reclined on Libo's chair, turned his head and glanced at him. Let me go there later. Just relying on the few trash in your hands, trying to stop him is just dreaming. I think maybe I can still struggle. Liber pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose, glanced at Tompa who fainted on the ground in the picture, and said, the opponent has reduced their staff, and they lost a game. It doesn't matter if no one can beat Roy Zoldyck. Just admit defeat when you meet him. In this way, in 4 versus 3, as long as you win 2 games, Roy Zoldyck will also be eliminated, so we will be eliminated. It's true that the rules are like this, but are you stupid or am I stupid? Sayu looked at Liber coldly with his eyes hanging. Do you think the rules are useful for people like Roy Zoldyck? We spent 10 billion to buy him to abide by the rules. I believe he won't break his promise. Liber said with some uncertainty. Sayu sneered. Remember, it's not 10 billion, it's 60 billion. The vice president spent 60 billion, plus me. Huh? Liber. And the second general hum-ha behind him. All dumbfounded. No, when did money become so worthless? Isn't it a bit exaggerated to spend 60 billion just to stop Roy Zoldyck from passing the level? Exaggeration? Sayu curled his lips, disapproving. Everyone Netero has a crush on is a stumbling block for Mr. Byongda. It doesn't matter how much money you spend to remove future stumbling blocks for adults. Okay. Sayu waved his hand, too lazy to say much. Depending on the situation, open the door later, just let me go. The rest, you don't need to worry about. Yes. Liber and the second general hum-ha behind him looked at each other, immersed in the shock, but couldn't remember it for a long time. Uncle, what's the matter? Roy noticed that he glanced at the camera coldly. Dog-nosed Gon has keen insight, curiously grabbed Roy's shirt. It's nothing, I'm watching the monkeys. Roy tied the wine gourd around his waist with a blank expression. And rubbed his hands together. Gon's hedgehog-haired kid looked around, wondering, didn't you see the monkey? Roy smiled and didn't say much. After fastening the wine gourd, he touched his stick knife with his hands. Maybe I will have a monkey brain hot pot today. The Mad Hunter Association is inhumane. The exam time is always 72 hours. Without eating for 3 days, they really think they are Iron Men. How to put it, I also want to have a meal of monkey brain hot pot to make up for it. Hey, are you ready? Across the ring, Dut had finished disseminating the exam rules, and gave Chick a wink. He was tall and tall, like Frankenstein's chick, with a ripped off the hood. Leap forward and step onto the ring. He has 19 red hearts tattooed on his chest. He is tall and tall, and he looks a head taller than the expert, Johnny. But in fact, this guy is just an empty-looking guy. Not to mention comparing with Johnny, even compared with Batut, his strength is not very good. But in Batdut's opinion, it's better to send him on the field to delay. When you meet Roy, surrender immediately. If you don't meet, with the strength of the chatter, it is not impossible to deal with the rest of Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika. No matter how you think about it, it's not a loss. It's a pity that there is something that shouldn't be tattooed on Shia's back, a spider. Without waiting for Gon, Leorio or even Roy to speak, Kurapika lowered his head, stood up without saying a word, and jumped onto the ring. This level, I'm coming. I have a reason why I have to fight. What's the reason? Gon and Leorio looked at each other, confused. Although Roy knew the reason, it was Kurapika's own business after all. He didn't want to say it. Roy naturally wouldn't be idle the shitty things about the Luda tribe and the Phantom Troop, take it out and spread it everywhere. However, it is worth mentioning. Just to remind you, Kurapika, Roy looked at the back of the blonde boy meaningfully, and said lightly, whether it is a fake spider or a real spider who can be imprisoned here, all they are serious criminals, and everyone has a way to die. The word, death, is biting hard. Gon and Leorio are unknown so. Kurapika standing on the ring trembled, half biting his lip and didn't make a sound. Mr. Tianwei never speaks in vain, he really saw through that the opponent was a fake spider. But. Let me kill someone else who has nothing to do with Phantom Troop. Can I really do it? Struggling filled Kurapika's heart. Seeing this, the good guy is in a daze. Aren't you courting death? Hey, I'm telling you, boy, the rules of the game in this game are, don't die, don't stop. If you want to win, kill the opponent. So, who are you looking down on by standing here in a daze? I want you to taste my iron fist. Boom, punched Kurapika around the head. It will kill you while you are in a daze. Who can be a scammer is not a shrewd guy. A powerful punch mixed with a steel plate was about to hit Kurapika. The blonde boy suddenly raised his head, his amber eyes suddenly turned fiery red. Cha Hu was startled when he saw this, he punched in midair and was forcibly taken back by him, staggering back. Hey, what do you want? I'm very powerful, don't come here. Damn, you guys don't understand human language, do you? There was a cliff behind him, and there was no way to retreat. Chawa, who was forced to a dead end, was directly pinched by Kurapika, punched his face heavily, and passed out on the spot. Patong, like throwing garbage, he threw Chawa on the ring. The battle ended much faster than everyone imagined. But this is Kurapika after anger. And future gangster. Hula, after finishing all this, the blonde boy's bangs fluttered slightly in the wind, took a deep breath, and said, let me give you 3 pieces of advice. First, the mark of the real Phantom Troop, in addition to the spider tattoo, there is also a number. Second, they killed too many people, so they don't bother to count how many people they killed. Third, in this life, don't say the 4 words Phantom Troop. So, according to you, he still has, this life, a sneer formed at the corner of Roy's mouth. Is this your answer, Kurapika? The blind man held a knife and stepped forward. The cliff seemed to be unable to withstand Roy's foot, and trembled violently, which scared Gon and Leorio. Uncle. He seems to be angry, but Kurapika is one of his own. You idiot, shut up. Leorio covered Gon's mouth. Any fool can see that Roy is angry. The air seems to condense at this moment. Roy looked at Kurapika across the pontoon, and said indifferently, I remember, the rule he said was no death, no rest. And I don't want to waste time here. Do you know what I mean? Clang. The stick knife came out of the body, and it was nailed to Kurapika's body with a swoosh. He dies or you die, you choose one. It is precisely because I am one of my own that I give you this opportunity to spread the word. The end of the stick knife trembled. The straight blade sinks into the ring like cutting tofu. President's office. Even through the screen, Netero can feel the sharpness of the stick knife, which is a knife that once broke his defense. Hey, Roy seems to take that boy seriously? Netero glanced at Maha, and said with a smile, "You will lend him a knife, old man, you may not be treated like this after death." "Thank you for your auspicious words, I will definitely take you down the day I die, old man." Maha rolled his eyes angrily. "Old man, if I'm not mistaken, that boy should be a survivor of the Karuta tribe. After the eyes turn red, it will change from the other 5 major types to the special type. It's not normal for my grandson to take a high look at such a talent. There is no need for you, a dead old man, to talk about popularizing the Karuta clan with me." Netero saw through Maha's trick of changing the subject while avoiding the important point, looked at Kurapika in the picture with faint eyes, and said, "It seems that the boy hasn't killed yet, man. In other words, Roy is forcing him to kill people." Maha reclined on the sofa, opened his shirt, patted his belly, and made a light pop sound, and then he sang and said with a smile, "The holy man of shit is just killing a beast. Boy, don't charge my grandson here, don't think, old man. I don't know that there are quite a few people who died in your hands. Ho. Being admired by a killer, I feel somewhat complicated." Netero gave Maha a blank look, and simply closed his mouth. If he had to say a few more BB words to the old man, he would be afraid will be pissed off. Papa. Maha patted his belly, and he was too lazy to waste his tongue. The two turned their faces away at the same time, watching TV. On the arena, Kurapika lowered his head, staring blankly at the stick and knife stuck upside down by his feet, and touched the fists in his sleeves tightly, and the sharp nails dug into the palm of his hand, causing bursts of stinging pain. Kill or be killed? Any fool knows the choice. But let him Kurapika lay hands on an insignificant person. The boy struggled and froze in place. Kurapika. Gon stared at Roy with his big innocent eyes, and then at Kurapika, his eyes full of worry. With his small brain capacity, he can't even imagine why things turned out like this. But in Leorio's opinion, Roy is doing the right thing. This is the hunter test. It's so cruel that it's either you or me. It's impossible to leave the whole team aside because of a momentary soft-heartedness. What's more, the other party is a serious criminal, and each sentence is within 120 years. Come on. A guy like this wouldn't regret dying 18 times. What's there to hesitate about? Think about your people. At this time, Roy took a sip of wine, and said coldly, "When Phantom Troop killed them, I have never seen them be soft. Smart people are often bound by self-confessed smartness. Roy doesn't want to be nosy, but since he has received money, even if he pretends to follow the rules. So because some people ridiculous conscience, it delays the progress of customs clearance. Roy is not his Kurapika's father, there is no obligation to spoil him." Kurapika is visibly trembling. The blonde boy's bangs are fluttering, and he hangs his head without saying a word. The images rooted in the depths of his mind are awakened again, and his back molars are clenched tightly in the painful, together, make a crunch sound. "Hey, boy. To remind you, he is a fraudster and has never killed anyone. Do you really have the heart to attack him?" On the opposite cliff, Batu saw something was wrong. The opposite seemed to be infighting. This shit, is God going to let them go? As long as Kurapika doesn't make a move. According to the rules of the game, the opponent loses. Plus the opponent loses one person, and naturally loses a game. So, as long as they win another game, they are free up. Freedom, boy, it's up to you. Damn, what is this guy on the other side doing at this time? Leorio looked at Batut and the others with their arms folded, gloating. Angrily, he shouted at Kurapika. "Kurapika, are you still here? What are you waiting for? Is there still a lot of people who commit fraud and commit suicide by hanging themselves? Or, are you really dead?" The word, death, suddenly awakens the dream man. Kurapika looked up and met Roy's pale, blind eyes head on. The blind man looked down at him with an indifferent expression. In an instant, Kurapika understood. Dao did what he said, as long as he doesn't do anything, he will definitely kill him. But my people are still waiting for me. I haven't avenged them yet. I absolutely can't die here. A punch of rationality Ko's conscience. Kurapika took a deep breath, and tremblingly pulled out the stick knife in front of him slowly. "Hey, boy, do you know what you're doing?" Badut's complexion changed, and he looked at Kurapika with a sullen face and said, "If you kill Chirp, you will become a murderer. What's the difference between that and the Phantom Troop guys you're talking about? You seem to talk a lot." The wine spilled out along the wine gourd, and Roy grabbed it in his hand and flicked it with his fingers. The water droplets, wrapped in surging thoughts, hit the bat's special shoulders. Badut only felt a chill on his right shoulder, and looked down. A blood hole came into his eyes, the front and back were transparent, and even a faint light came out. Then he realized. He was actually crippled by a drop of wine that popped out at random. Ah! The shrill scream exploded. The nerves finally reacted, and the pain signal was transmitted to Badut's brain. Badut tried painfully to cover the blood hole with his hand. But the blood spurted out desperately, but the more it was covered, the more it flowed. Bat. Seza, Laylut, and Johnny were dumbfounded. A second ago they were opening champagne at half-time, gloating as if they had seen the dawn of freedom, and the blind man held their hands teach them a lesson. It's really scary. In the vice president's office, Periston shook the goblet in his hand and took a sip of the red wine. His eyesight is not that of Seza and Laylut at all. Johnny, these trash who don't even know how to read, and haven't even opened Oranodes can compare. He could clearly see that what pierced through Badut's right shoulder. Was not a water bomb at all, but a Nyen bomb. Attach thoughts to water droplets, and there is still such a great power. I have to say that breaking the limit of chi is amazing. There was a smile on the corner of Periston's mouth. Glancing at the mobile phone placed on the desk, he did not forget to remind a certain monkey. Sayu, it's time for you to perform. Understood. In the monitoring room at the bottom of the trap tower, Sayu hung up Periston's phone with a beep, glanced at Roy in the picture, took a deep breath, and stood up. Chao Shou carried the Ruyi stick on his shoulders, and said to Libo with a different head, "Send me there. I told you a long time ago. Your bastards can't count on." What Master Sayu said is true. Libo shoved the flirty pink glasses on the bridge of his nose with a wave of his hand, and the second general, Henga, who followed behind him attacked, nodded and bowed and opened the secret door for Sayu. "Master Sayu, please." Monkey helped the golden hoop on his head, stepped out of the monitoring room, followed the passage, and went straight to the cliff. Squeak. The stone door of the monitoring room closed heavily. Lieber finally got a chance to take a break, and lay down on a chair, with a piece of dafu biscuit, Okaba, and chewed. Boss. Who do you think will win, Sayu-sama or that Roy Zoldyck? Watching Sayu leave, the second general returned to his original position. Without the pressure of Sayu, he breathed a sigh of relief. You said it all, that Roy Zoldyck is so strong that he can fight Netero's president a few times, and he still doesn't lose the wind. Then Mr. Sayu will go this time. I'm afraid it will be miserable. Do you know what you're talking about? Before Libo could speak, the on the right glanced at the HMPH on the left, and stretched out his hand to give him a blow. That's Sayu from the 12 earthly branches. Grown-ups. Does Master Potter know? He is also a member of the 12 earthly branches, and he is the closest to him that the president himself admits. Master Sayu can rank with him in the 12 earthly branches, and his strength will definitely not be inferior. Teach a rookie Xiaobai a lesson, isn't that easy? You idiot. Hey, I said you too, if you want to quarrel, get out and quarrel with me, Lieber glared angrily. People are pure. Do you really think that without him, monkeys and pigs can be kings in this trap tower? Worry, it's all your fault. Fart, it's your fault. HMPH. The two generals glared at each other, and Chi bowed to Lieber. Boss, SMY Marseille. Lieber snorted coldly, took a bottle of Coke, and took a sip. Only then did he feel that the anger in his chest dissipated a lot. Then, he widened his fox eyes and stared at the picture intently. I'm actually not sure. Sayu and that Roy Zoldyck, who is weaker and who is stronger. But, does it even matter? My grandson must win. In the president's office, Maha felt that patting his belly wasn't enough for him, so he glared at Do Mionren. What are you doing in a daze? Why don't you come here and give me a shoulder squeeze for the old man? Bean Noodle Man. The one looking for help looked at Netero and Netero laughed. What a coincidence, isn't it? The old man felt a little heavy on his shoulders just now. Dudu, come and help Lao Wei pinch. Do Mian said happily. Here comes the president. Turning around and saying sorry to Maha, he trotted behind Netero and squeezed his shoulders graciously. Hey, what a good dog. Maha glared at Netero angrily, and said coldly, seeing my subordinates being beaten so badly by my grandson, thanks to you, the president, you still have the mood to enjoy it. Tisk. Sure enough, the surname Isaac is cold-blooded. Hiss. Why do these words sound familiar? The dead old man said this, so it's really a shame. Netero he gave Maha a sideways look, and responded with a sneer. Celebrate before the fight starts, but it's a big taboo on the battlefield. Sorry, old man, what I forgot to tell you is, Sayu is also a double limit breaker. So, whoever loses and who wins is not sure. Hey, really? Maha replied with a noncommittal sneer, then we'll see. When will you be able to become an earthly branch if you break the limit twice? Sure enough. Your hunter association has fallen. Netero. Blowing on his beard, he glared at the Domian man. Put the key point, haven't you eaten? Bean Noodle Man. Mad. Are you sure you're the president? Not a clone of some bad old man. Co-author. I'm the co-author of A Slave. The Domian man wants to cry but has no tears. With a wry smile, he endured the blow without any reason, and turned his eyes to the TV. In the picture. From the depths of the deep passage, there came a series of footsteps. Hey, hurry up if you want to do it, you don't want time to be wasted, do you? Who? Everyone looked back in horror. In the deep passage, a monkey walked out with eyes hanging. He was wearing a black and yellow martial arts uniform, with a unique golden hoop on his head, and the ruyi stick he was holding in his hand lightly waved a gust of wind to peel off a layer of skin in the passage. The gravel, rusted down, messily sprinkled on the ground. Huh? Monkey? Do monkeys commit crimes too? Gon's innocent voice sounded. Sayu. The corner of his mouth twitched, and he aimed at Gon with a loud voice, and just spouted wildly, Can the brat talk? Lao Su. 12 earthly branches, Sayu. Uncle, what are the 12 earthly branches? Gon scratched the back of his head and asked Roy. Roy patted his dog's head with a smile. Who knows? Maybe. Not something. God is not a thing. Sayu's fluffy monkey face was pulled down. Slowly walked towards the entrance of the cave. Excuse me, please let me go. The mission of you bastards has been completed, you can step back. Whom to scold? Dissection expert, Johnny smiled melancholy. Has the trap tower been breached by a monster? A monkey will be let in, too. Bang. A fluffy fist burst into Johnny's eyes. Before he finished speaking, Johnny's head exploded instantly like a watermelon hit by a heavy hammer. Brain and bright red blood spurted out. Onto Lelouch's body. The psychiatrist, who has always been known for his mental stability, screamed and passed out on the spot. Together with Johnny's headless body, he fell to the ground with a plop. Who was the monkey talking about? Sayu flicked his hand and punched Johnny to death, as easily as crushing a mosquito. He squinted at Batut and Saiza beside him. One weak and one crippled. The two garbage, very wisely retreated behind him. The so-called freedom has become a castle in the air, and it collapsed in an instant. You please. You, Seza, help me to the infirmary. Badut's complexion was pale, and he forced a weak smile at Sayu, and gave Sayu a cryptic wink. Saiza swallowed tremblingly. There was no need for Badut to wink, and he let out a loud cry, Mom. Terrified, I turned around and ran away. Just put Bado in place mad. This group of people is too cruel. Johnny is dead. Chick looks like she is not far from death. As for Lelouch, that bitch, I can only wish her good luck. Huh. MLGBD. Did you forget someone? Batut. He stared helplessly at Sai Zha disappearing into the passage in an instant, so he gritted his teeth, leaned against the passage, and moved back bit by bit. Blood spilled on the ground, dragging out a long blood path. The smell of blood spread. Gon tugged at Leorio's sleeve. Hey, Leorio, didn't you say that some dissection expert is very powerful? Why do you punch? And lie down. Leorio swallowed a mouthful of saliva, looked at Johnny's headless body, then carefully glanced at Sayu, and quietly leaned towards Roy's side. You idiot, he is very powerful. But even more powerful is that guy. 12 earthly branches, Sayu. Killed the most ferocious criminal in Saba City with one fist. Damn, who is the most vicious? Vision limits Leorio's imagination. Different from him, this good-for-nothing, Kurapika's expression was terrified when he heard the other party's name. The 12 earthly branches, those are the big figures in the Hunter Association. Excluding the 2 presidents and vice presidents, the 12 of them are the strongest and most powerful. And such a character. Why is it here? Kurapika glanced at Sayu secretly. The other party embraced the ruyi stick, and faced a blind man across the ring. A sudden realization came to his heart. The other party is here for teacher Tianwei. So. What does this have to do with you? Sensing Kurapika's gaze, Roy said lightly, Okay, your business. Kurapika was stunned for a moment, took a deep breath when meeting Roy's indifferent gaze, clenched the stick knife tightly, and walked slowly towards the chatter. Then he closed his eyes, raised his stick knife, and stabbed down fiercely. Puff. The sharp point of the knife directly sank into Chawa's heart, stabbing it right. Poor Chiwa was awakened by the pain, then his neck was tilted, and he fell unconscious. The blood spilled out and left all over the place. Kurapika opened his eyes, the fiery red faded, and the amber rose. to his surprise. Really wanting to kill people is not as unacceptable as he imagined. He wiped the blood splashed on his face. He raised his hand and pulled out the stick knife, and stepped back to avoid the splattered blood. Shui Zhu, silent for the last time, took a last look at Xia, turned and walked towards the ring, holding the stick knife in both hands, and handed it back to Roy. If your people see you today, they will be heartbroken, but you will have no regrets. Roy grabbed it with his hands, firmly held the stick knife in his hand, and then swung it with one arm. The bloodstains on the blade turned into a blood-colored streak, sinking into the stone wall beside it, drawing a long gully on it. I understand. Kurapika raised her head, exhaled, faced Roy, and smiled. Next, I'll leave it to you, Teacher Tianwei. Hey, and me, Kurapika. Gon waved happily at Kurapika, but Leorio covered his mouth and dragged him behind Roy. Shut up. Why don't you see how Johnny died? Go up and find death. Peeved. Tong Yan is the most reckless. Kurapika shook his head and laughed, nodded at Roy, and retreated behind him. Hula. There seems to be a cool wind blowing on the cliff. Across the huge arena, Sayu seemed impatient to wait. Okay. Roy Zoldyck, can you give me a treat? The monkey leapt, crossed the cliff with one step, and landed on the ring. The wishful stick in his hand hit the ground heavily. There was a loud boom. The ring seemed to be unable to bear his strength, and there was a whine. A deep hole was left in place. Was it named? As this? Can't it be up? After taking a sip of wine, Roy curled his lips, casually tied the wine gourd around his waist, and held a stick and knife. Like an ordinary blind man, he knocked left and right, walked along the pontoon bridge, and came to the on the ring. Stand still. He looked at Sayu with a half smile and asked, is there no one in the Hunter Association? A monkey can be an examiner. To be honest, it's quite disappointing. Monkey? It's a monkey again. Sayu's fluffy forehead showed a few cross veins. He kicked the ruyi stick with his upper foot, and directly grabbed him in his hand, pointed at Roy from a distance, and said through gritted teeth, this Guan, whoever wins wins. Do you still need the time I gave you to prepare? I don't need time, but I have a question, and I want to ask you for advice. Sayu was taken aback. Say it. Who told you to be named Sayu? A murderous aura burst out from Roy's body. The blind man had black hair and was motionless, looked at Sayu coldly and said, do you know that you exist? You have already insulted my idol. A real monkey wears a phoenix wing purple gold crown, wears a socket golden armor, steps on lotus root silk walking cloud shoes, holds a ruyi golden cudgel. A somersault cloud, straight up to the sky for thousands of miles. Unspeakably chic and wanton. But this one in front of me, is some kind of goofy thing? Sharp-mouthed monkey cheeks, crooked eyebrows and squinting eyes, whether you stand in a straight shape, whether you do it in a straight shape. I'm really disgusted, thank you. Who the hell is insulting whom, bastard? Whoosh, a wishful stick on the head of the bag suddenly hit Roy. Sayu didn't seem to feel Roy's murderous aura. His beard and hair were all stretched out, and he also released his murderous aura. The two streams of air collided and rushed, forming a strong tornado, which swept out in all directions. This is not a place for us to stay. Go into the passage. The face was blown by the wind, and it was tightly attached to the cheekbones. Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio couldn't even open their eyes. They supported each other, and hurriedly retreated to the passage page. Plop, Chirp, Johnny, and the fainted Leilut were not so lucky. Swept by the murderous wind and fell into the cliff, they obviously couldn't survive. Dang. The sound of Jin-Ge clashing came out along with the tornado. With the stick knife out of its sheath, the enemy took the lead, and accurately blocked Sayu's head-turning stick. It's not just you, Roy Zoldyck, who break the limit of strength. Although the wishful stick was blocked, the tyrannical force transmitted through the stick itself crushed Roy overwhelmingly. Gon, Kurapika and Leorio are three cats in the passage, watching secretly, and saw. A ring-shaped crater spread from Roy's feet, and the huge arena was instantly pressed down by 1 meter. Purely physical confrontation. If someone thinks that Sayu is tall and thin, and ignores his power, you are doomed to suffer a lot. In the vice president's office, Pariston was sipping red wine comfortably, watching Sayu push Roy down with a stick with relish. The smile on the corner of his mouth, compared to the past. As he said, the 12 earthly branches, recognized by Netero, are not based on any relationship, but on the comprehensive consideration of strength, merit, and contribution, and will be selected by the Hunter Association from bottom to top. The top of the pyramid. Sayu also breaks the limit with strength. Netero stroked his beard, looked at the ring that was shaved off by 1 meter in the picture, and said quietly, if Roy thinks that the opponent is good at speed, then it's okay, it was a big mistake. It's just started. Let's put it on the air. Maha slapped his hand on his belly without stopping, and said calmly, my grandson is right. A monkey is a monkey, after all, it won't be on the stage. If you really think that you can crush people by relying on unexpected power, then you can only say, he shouldn't be too naive. There seems to be a tacit understanding between grandparents and grandchildren. Sayu is great. Roy is neither in a hurry nor in a hurry. With a glance, he has seen Sayu's attributes completely. Name: Shen Sayu. Bone age: 37. Physique: 160. Normal person 10. Speed: 199. Normal person 10. Power: 221. Normal person 10. Remarks: 1 level breaks the limit. Air capacity: 240. Normal person 10. Remarks: 1 level breaks the limit. Did strength and capacity double limit like me? It seems that some people are uncomfortable watching me take this tens of billions. They must K me. Alright, today's monkey brain hot pot meal, I'm definitely going to eat it. The muscles in the right arm are bulging. 10 points more than Sayu's strength, showing the edge. With a backhand knife, Roy swings the Ruyi stick, sticks out the index finger and middle finger of his left hand, and suddenly points towards Sayu's heart. Finger gun. The domineering fingers wrapped around the armed color bow pierced the air. Sayu screamed, worry. Alarm bells ringing in my heart. A swallow turned over and twisted its body in midair. Flying finger gun brushed his monkey hair and flew over. With a sound of boom, he sank into the cliff behind him, and directly opened a deep pit with a diameter of 10 meters on it. If this King guy gets hit, half of his body will be gone. Sweat dripping from Sayu's back, he didn't see Roy Zoldyck use this trick when he fought the president in the video. Sure enough. A monkey is a monkey, and it walks very fast when the situation is not good. A throwing finger shot missed. Roy didn't care at all, and flew to make up for it with 2 more feet. There was a grinding sound, and the air seemed to be unable to bear the strength of Roy's feet, and there were bursts of wailing. In the blink of an eye, 2 crescent-shaped vacuum slashes were formed, and they shot at Sayu. Land feet. The foot skills in the 6 styles. Rely on the foot muscles to contract and stretch rapidly to create kinetic energy. Then the legs are thrown out rapidly, and after exceeding the speed of sound, the air in front of the legs is compressed, and the vacuum is rolled up to create a sharp chopping wave. There are no fancy skills, all rely on strength. It's a move I haven't seen before. Sayu grinned, holding a golden cudgel, with Nyen attached to the end of the stick, and bowing left and right, stiffly. Relying on a fierce force and a limit-breaking strength, he directly knocked Lanzhao out of the doctor. The crescent-shaped slashing waves that flew out sank into the stone walls on both sides of the ring, and directly plowed 2 long ravines on it. The gravel was accompanied by the splash of smoke and dust, and Sayu felt a numbness in his palm, and when he looked again, there was no sign of Roy in front of him. Where are you looking? The word shaved came first, and Roy appeared behind Sayu. Leaning on him, he took off the wine gourd and took a sip of wine. The monkey only felt a sense of coldness, and rushed from the soles of its feet to the tinling guy, holding the stick and sweeping back. Roy's figure faded away. Another look, and he appeared behind him again. Like a ghost, he clung to Sayu and couldn't let him go. Damn it. Roy Zoldyck, are you just going to hide? Sayu scratched his head. But Roy is like a feather stuck behind him, always appearing behind him unexpectedly. Leaning on him, I collected experience points. Reminder, experience points +1. Although the double limit breaker is not as good as Netero, it can barely be regarded as a bigger ant, and it can't be wasted. Ton. A glass of wine in the spring breeze of peaches and plums, 10 years of night rain in the rivers and lakes. The monkey is impatient, the wishful stick in his hand dances vigorously, turns around and hits Roy's head with a stick. But relying on shaving with the blessing of Roy's footsteps are always 1 point faster than his wish stick. Gone. Kurapika and Leorio couldn't see clearly, and felt that the monkey was getting more and more anxious. But Pariston, who was watching the battle through the camera, squinted his eyes, folded his hands, and rested his chin, but watched with gusto. It's the footsteps. Sayu's speed is not bad either. Only 1 step away from becoming a saint and stepping into the realm of ghosts and gods. It's a pity that he didn't specialize in steps like Roy Zoldyck, so he 1 step slow down. Hee. It's getting more and more interesting. Not only the steps, but that guy's finger skills and foot skills seem to be extraordinary. It seems that the Zoldyck family's family tradition of assassination is very powerful. Shit assassination technique. Maid. Don't look at me. I don't know how to. In the president's office, Maha went from looking up and watching TV to sitting up watching TV. It only took Roy less than 3 tricks. One move of flying finger, spear, one move of land foot, plus one move of shaving. No, where did this kid learn so many physical techniques? If you go on like this, you call the old man's own dark steps and limb bends, where do you put your face? Ho 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 ho. Old man, look at you so excited, you don't know. You don't know any of the physical skills that Roy kid used. Netero enjoyed the bean-face man's horse-killing chicken, took a sip of lemon tea, and squinted at Maha. The old man's surprised look is really funny. Netero stroked his beard. I am not talented, I learned a hand of moonstep. If you want to learn, old man, please, I can't help but teach you. Who's the sarcasm? Brat. And please, why don't you go to heaven? Maha gave Netero a look. Netero blinked at him. Hey, how do you know that Moonboo can go to the sky? Oh, I'm a little tired from sitting. I'd better fly and watch for a while. Netero waved his hand, signaling that the bean-faced man needn't pinch, turned over and stood up from the sofa, kicked the air with 1 foot, and 1 meter higher. It hovered in front of Maha, and the old man's saliva was dripping out. Maha. It's Netero's day. That brat Roy made it himself? Grandpa, I donate 10 billion pocket money at a time, but he is good, he will not share with Grandpa the first time he has good things, it is cheaper for outsiders. Seeing him come back, I will not smash it. Bah. I will not give him 2 extra money. Maha was a bit apprehensive, and snorted coldly, Moonstep, it's just a trick, my grandson told me already. Seeing that Netero didn't believe it, Maha stuck out his foot and stomped on the air. The sound of the sonic boom was just about to explode, but he was crushed by his huge force, and then the old man was like Netero seeing Roy use month just like watching Netero's performance. You can understand how it exerts its strength. At first, it was a little staggering, but after 2 or 3 steps, it stood on the sky with its head on the ceiling, and it was even more double-headed than Netero. I have to say that he can live for 300 years, he is also a monster. How to say? Maha looked at Netero provocatively. The corner of Netero's mouth twitched. Don't let me pretend to be a dead old man. Learn and sell now, isn't this something you can do with your hands? Bean Noodle Man. Chairman, I feel like you are scolding me. Thank you for being insulted again. Although I am not human anymore. The bean-faced man sighed silently. He was already numb. He simply pretended to be a stone statue, staring at the TV with his big round eyes, on the screen. Roy is sticking to Sayu's back, drinking wine comfortably. On the other hand, Sayu is waving the Ruyi stick in his hand, hitting more and more urgently. Okay. You hide. I really don't believe in this evil incarnation of the 3 ways, you can still hide? Listen to monkeys. See monkeys. Talk to monkeys. Hey, here comes the boss. Swinging the Ruyi stick in his hand backwards, Sayu's eyes glared, the turbulent thoughts rolled, and he came out of his body with teeth and claws. In midair, it turned into 3 monkeys. Or baring their teeth. Or grinning. Or after scratching the ground, without Sayu's reminder, he directly rushed towards Roy behind him. Wow. So many monkeys. Gon the cat was at the entrance of the passage, sticking out its small head to look carefully. 3 monkeys have different shapes. One has no eyes, the other has no ears. The third has no mouth. See, it's very weird. But with both hands and feet, the speed of jumping at Roy is not slow. It's a pity that Hanzo is not here, otherwise, if he sees it, he will definitely cry bitterly. Leorio also looked at Sayu, divided into 4, in shock. Isn't this the dream about the shadow clone technique that the bald head talked about when chatting with him? Kurapika glanced at Leorio. When did this guy hook up with a bald head again? However, the clone is very handsome, but if the monkey is separated from Mr. Lingy's closing dragon. Hee. Am I entering the water curtain cave? Roy glanced at the 3 monkeys, seeing, hearing and speaking, and knew very clearly that this is not a real monkey, but the furry monkey on the opposite side. The 3 Nyen beasts, facing Lei Gongzui. Nyen beast, in fact, it is a person with the ability of Nyen, which differentiates its own Nyen, and summons an individual that can act independently according to its own imagination and magnanimity. For example, Shizuku's pop-eyed fish, and Lei's dodgeball force. One is Manipulator's psychic beast. The other is Transmuter's psychic beast. The number and characteristics are similar to those of Nen, the category is closely related to the air capacity. As an enhancer, Sayu can not only summon Nyen beasts, but also summon 3 Nyen beasts at once. Each of them has different characteristics. I have to say that the limit of Chi has given him a lot of help. It seems like it's been a long time since I saw Sayu in real action. Hunter Association, Vice President's office. Pariston poured himself another glass of red wine, put it in a goblet and woke up. Looking up at the audiovisual speaking, 3 monkeys pounced on Roy. What a painful smile, even more so. So, faced with this situation, Roy Zoldyck, what are you going to do? Will the knife that broke Netero's defense be reproduced? I'm really looking forward to it. Ho ho. Old man, who said that my hunter association has fallen. In the president's office, he noticed that the 3 monkeys of vision, hearing and speaking, and Sayu 4 monkeys surrounded Roy. Netero glanced at Maha, and said quietly, the 12 earthly branches are not chosen by the old man, but the following people are recognized and recommended. Although Sayu has a bad temper and speaks out loud, but the strength of the whole body, the old man still recognizes. Especially his Nien beast, specially attacking enhancer, it's not good for me, you, or Roy. Seeing, hearing and speaking, 3 monkeys. Seeing monkey, deprived of vision. Listening monkey, deprived of hearing. Speaking monkey, deprived of language. 3 monkeys come out together. If one monkey can bite the opponent, it will prevent the opponent from launching and maintaining its own nen. After the enhancer is recruited, it will be even more chaotic. Or because of the disorder of chi, the actions are extremely easy to be predicted by Sayu. In this way, the enhancer or the nen who is good at attacking will fall into a passive position, because Sayu has predicted the attack trajectory in advance, thus falling into a disadvantage. It's just. Boy, why'd I feel that you seem to have malicious intentions? Shi Shiran put his feet on the tea table and said, your son is forced to raise him. If he knows that you praise his subordinates so much, is he happy or happy? Damn old man. It's beyond you're not forced to raise. Please pay attention to your pronunciation. Netero's face darkened, and he snorted coldly, the news is well informed. But. Warning you, old man, it's not your turn to take care of my hunter association. Instead of playing tricks with the old man here, you should worry more about your grandson. He was bitten by a monkey. In the picture. One of the 3 monkeys bites Roy's arm. The other bites Roy's thigh. There is a cat on Roy's back, showing its sharp teeth and taking a bite. Seeing this, Gon, Kurapika and Leorio couldn't help exclaiming, Uncle, Dao Sensei. However, their uncle, Teacher Tianwei, drinking wine indifferently, a touch of blush appeared on his handsome face, as if he didn't realize it. It seems, he really drank too much. He opened his mouth and burped. The smell of alcohol spit on the face of Sayu who was walking towards him. Sayu casually wiped it, and sneered, drink while fighting. MLGBD. Who do you look down on? Deprived Lao Su of his 5 senses. Vision. Hearing, language, breath. Mind. Once deprived, a person is like being locked in a black paint. A small black room with no light. Only Shu Zi was beaten to death with a wishful stick. The 3 monkeys, seeing, hearing, and speaking, were called out just for this moment, to take a sharp bite. I just heard a few crisp sounds of click. After one bite, Roy didn't bite, didn't say a word, on the contrary, it seemed that he bit a piece of fine steel teeth and broke it. You can't talk like a monkey, armed color, plus, iron block, creates a steel body. The demon god who came out of ancient times. A cold arc was drawn at the corner of his mouth, and the hand holding the wine gourd was stained with jet black domineering military color, and he slapped it behind his back. Dang. There seemed to be a ringing bell. The speaking monkey, clinging to his back, screamed. Roy opened the gourd directly. Without his head, it immediately turned into a wave of thought, and entered Sayu's body. Have you had enough trouble? I'm not in the mood to play with the monkey. Reminder. The experience value increases by +1. Seeing monkey, and listening monkey, witnessed the death of speaking monkey, screamed strangely, and fled to Sayu frantically holding their rotten teeth. It's a pity. You can come if you want, and you can leave if you want go. Isn't that rude? Flicking out 2 flying finger guns, imbued with armed color domineering. Seeing monkey, and listening monkey, turned their backs to Roy. Before they could escape to Sayu's side, they felt a whistling, coming from their ears. Turning their heads and looking. The dark, Nien Dan, bloomed in their respective pupils, becoming the last color in their life. Plop. The 2 monkey heads exploded into a bloody mist. The legs were still running. But the head was gone. Even worse than speaking monkey. After the flying finger gun pierced through the seeing monkey and listening monkey, it did not stop there. The turbulent armed color poured into it, and directly destroyed the remaining parts of seeing monkey and listening monkey. That half-stretched body was erased from this world. This weird scene made Sayu suddenly stop, and it even stunned Paristone and Netero who were watching through the screen. Exorc. Exorcist? Sayu pulled his furry shoehorn face, feeling that half of his psychic power had been removed out of thin air. In the eyes of the pair of hanging triangular monkeys, circles and circles appeared. A circle of fluctuations. That's right, it's the psychic master. It's still the psychic master of the trait department. Pariston tapped on the desk lightly with his fingers, making a soft da-da sound. That note the smile that had been hanging on the lips didn't know when it stopped. Obviously, he didn't expect that this blind man named Roy Zoldyck would actually wear a layer of Nian-shishi skin. His jet black chi should be his weapon to eliminate thoughts. Interesting. A nemesis master who can fight against the president without losing the wind. Jin, the toy I found seems to be more interesting than you. A person who can imitate other people's strike ability with just one punch. A mind-eliminating master who is born with thought energy and has the effect of eliminating thoughts. Ah, Sparasi, God gave me these two Pariston toys. The rest of my life doesn't seem to be lonely anymore. Taking a sip of the red wine. There was a perverted and eerie laughter from the vice president's office. Almost the president's office on the first floor heard it. This kid. Old man, did you already know? Netero glanced at Maha. Seeing that Roy easily killed the three monkeys of seeing, hearing, and speaking. The president of the assembly was slightly stunned, and he never thought that Roy still had such a hole card hidden. That is to say, when you fight against him again, that kid didn't take it seriously, did he? Netero raised his eyebrows, and was taken aback by the idea that suddenly popped up in his mind. Facing Maha's smug eyes, he just listened. Shiren, the little old man, began to slap his belly again, making a crack, crack sound. If you don't know it, it will be misunderstood. What dirty thing is True doing to the bean-faced man in the room? Smiled proudly and said, a killer is all about being caught by surprise. If people can see the cards clearly, can they still be called killers? So, boy, don't make a fuss, so as not to expose your ignorance. Netero. Am I ignorant? No matter how bad I am, I will never be like you, an old immortal, dementia, who only knows to stare at cartoons all day long. Ho 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 ho. Would you really put gold on your face? Netero curled his lips. Who doesn't know that Kid Roy's teacher is called Fujitora? So, no matter how powerful that kid is, does he have a hookup relationship with you, old man? Netero took a sip of lemon tea and smacked his mouth. I heard people shouting and making out with Mr. Fujitora. Old man, you were calling one by one your precious grandson. Why? Didn't that Kid Roy call you, Grandpa Maha? Pierced my heart. Maha felt a pain in his heart, and he didn't come up in one breath. He really wanted to kick his legs and die in place. It's a pity that longevity rice is not free, even if he wants to die not easy. HMPH. You, a kid who doesn't even have a grandson, know what grandfather and grandson love. Maha blew his beard and stared. I am an old man. Do you understand that being in love with Roy is called falling in love and killing each other? It's okay. Don't make a fuss. Teach your son to be forced to raise one, and give you one, so that you won't even have a person to help your coffin when you get old. Tisk, miserable. The corner of Netero's mouth twitched. If time could be turned back, he really wanted to go back to the age of 20, grabbed Maha's ear, and solemnly said to him. Maha. Did you hear CNM? That's right. It's CM. I don't want this old face. I want to scold you, you old bastard. Hey, I'm afraid there is only mutual killing, but not mutual love. Netero glanced back at Maha. The old man who is about 500 years old and snorted coldly at the same time. Don't pass face it. No one wants to talk to anyone anymore. The Domian people are caught in the middle. I'm used to it after seeing a lot. You guys just make noise. If you move, I'll lose. The bean-faced man in the stone statue stared at the TV hanging on the wall without blinking, and saw. In the picture, after Roy abolished the vision, hearing and speaking, 3 monkeys with 1 wine gourd and 2 fingers. In the messy arena, the atmosphere dropped to freezing point again. Sayu, who lost the support of Nyan Beast, gritted his teeth and stared at Roy. The seriousness on his face couldn't be dispelled. Logically speaking, at this level, not only for the glory of the Monkey Clan, but also for the brothers, rushed up and knocked Roy. However, Sayu just didn't dare to move. Roy just nodded. Sayu is really ridiculous. Hey, I said, do you know what a real monkey looks like? Sayu clenched the Ruyi stick in his hand and kept silent. Roy raised the wine gourd, raised his neck and took another sip of wine, chuckled, and said to himself, I'll tell you what a real monkey should look like. Go up to the 9 heavens and make troubles in the heavenly palace, and go down to the sea to disturb the dragon palace and make it uneasy. No one can restrain him, let alone oppress him. For the Monkey King. Hi, spit out a mouthful of alcohol. You're not talking nonsense with me, are you? What heavenly palace? Dragon palace? Of the Monkey King? I don't understand. Sayu squinted his eyes. Suddenly felt like this was an opportunity. A chance to beat someone drunk. He was waiting. Pariston was also waiting for the president's office after listening to Roy's drunk nonsense. The two old men who briefly broke off friendship looked at each other, confused. Ttt. A whole gourd of wine was drained and half of the gourd was drained. Roy hiccuped and seemed to stagger a bit. It's this time. Sayu's eyes lit up, saying. Hard. The turbulent thought power poured out, all condensing on one end of the wish stick. Then use Ju to seal the chi that escapes to other parts of the body, so that the mind force concentrated at the end of the wishful stick is further strengthened. Infinitely close to 100%. It is the advanced level of Nen, use 1. Entangling, extremely refining, fat, and doubt, combined together as a powerful ultimate move, hard. Om. The void vibrates. The air seems to be deformed and distorted because it can't bear the hard intensity. Horrible fluctuations emanate from the end of the stick. Sayu's ugly triangular eyes suddenly yi-ning. At this moment, his body flashed, and he came to the top of Roy's head, raised his wish stick, and aimed at the blind man's tinling guy. It was a mallet. Obviously. At this moment, he is absolutely murderous. Thumping candidates? Can this also be counted as the content of your hunter test? In the president's office, Maha grumbled, turned over and got up, squinted his eyes and stared at Sayu in the picture, and rushed out with uncontrollable murderous aura. The Do-Mian man felt that he fell into the ice hole in an instant, and shivered uncontrollably. Ho 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 ho. The rules are determined by the examiner. Sayu doesn't need to get the consent of the old man. Netero was happy and unafraid. He saw the tension and anger in Maha's eyes, and said with a sneer, Aren't you very confident in your grandson? Why? Are you scared now? Yes. I'm scared. So if something happens to Roy, you Hunter Association will give me a death sentence first. Maha said calmly. When the voice fell to the ground, it was like a few drops of water falling. Dang dang dang, knocking on the market with the heart of true. Now he is not joking. Netero's eyes were serious, and he suddenly remembered the words that Maha had been talking about all the time. I am just such a grandson. It seems that it is not a joke. But life and death. He is in the Hunter Association, and he can't fly over to stop it. So, Netero moved his hands and feet, took a deep breath. The same get ready for battle. Let's just practice it. Let's just change it to deathmatch. At least Maha wants to clean the Hunter Association, so let's pass the level of him as the president first. Hula. The invisible gust of wind is blowing across the screen. On the ring, I felt the sharp wind coming from the top of my head. Roy raised his pale and blind eyes, but he couldn't tell whether he was drunk or sober. I could only vaguely feel the corners of his mouth floating slightly. Seems to be smiling. Ruyi is great. Thank you. This is also an insult to my idol. But the big or small Ruyi golden cudgel is the name of the family. Who are you scaring by putting the whole broken stick here? Clang. The stick knife was finally out of its sheath. The bright light of the knife pierced the air and brought up gusts of wind. Recalling that I was once in the dark clouds, and accompanied him to chop the thunder. Roy was blessed to the heart, thinking of a certain Mr. Kai with a horny head, with the strength of alcohol, with a knife. The first strike came first, and he slashed towards the Ruyi stick that was thrown at his head. Julong gossip Jong e Yinaluo. Boom. There was thunder on the ground. Overlord looked domineering, wrapped around a staff knife. Zhang Dao seemed to have fallen in love with Leihuo. With the blind man's wanton laughter, he cut off the Ruyi stick with his backhand. Vori. Sayu claims that the Ruyi stick with hard blessing is unbreakable. But, under his dumbfounded gaze, there was a soft sound. The Ruyi stick was split into two pieces by Roy. The incision was as smooth as a mirror, as if it was no different from cutting tofu. What's even more frightening is, the tyrant and the body. The stick knife is no longer a stick knife, but a death scythe enchanted by the god of death. Come faster, go faster. Swipe across Sayu's chest and cut the monkey over, on the ground. The skin and flesh rolled up. The blood burst out suddenly, the pain came afterward. The monkey screamed and hugged itself, rolling all over the ground. The 10 hideous knife cuts on its chest. Like a terrifying centipede. Those who watched it were shocked. One knife. He only made one knife. Or, he's been playing Sayu since the beginning. In the vice president's office, Pariston noticed the thunder flames burning on the staff and knife in Roy's hand. The smile that would never fade away at the corner of his mouth. For the first time, he restrained himself. I don't know what's going on. That thunder is so weird. It actually gave him a rare feeling of fright. Work. That feeling became more and more intense. He couldn't help but wonder if he was Sayu, would he be able to deal with Roy's knife? It's hard to say. Pariston frowned, not sure. Maybe. Only when Sayu comes back and asks the person how he feels, can we see some ways. But, I'm afraid some people think too well. The president's office on the first floor. Can I ask you to put away your murderous spirit? The scene of Sayu being hacked to the ground by Roy is reflected in the screen. Netero glanced at Maha. Old man, don't worry now. Maha groaned. Throwing himself on the sofa again, pulling off his shirt, going back to his old job, patting his belly again. Ho ho, boy. I told you a long time ago that your shit is not good for earthly branches, you just don't believe it. See now, it's just a piece of shit. What's wrong? Don't plan to bloodbath my hunter association? Netero snorted coldly and said, you are very knowledgeable. Why don't you spread the word with me? What is the name of Roy's knife? The domineering stick knife wrapped around the king's collar. This is the second time Netero has seen it. The first time it goes back to when this kid rushed into the dark clouds to fight against the thunder. It was a boy with golden red around him. The raging flames, like a demon god crawling out of the magma, scattered the dark clouds in the sky abruptly. At that time, Netero realized that it was not easy. As expected. No matter how bad Sayu is as a member of the 12 earthly branches, he is not a master who can cut down the ground with a single knife. It is because he does not use Netero, it's hard to say, just knock him over with one palm. But Roy did it. It really makes people sigh inwardly that the younger generation is awesome. HMPH, don't talk to me, kid. Maha closed his eyes guilty, pretending to understand and said, didn't I tell you? Then it's not called the whole card. So, this kind of secrets related to our Zoldyck family's secrets, naturally cannot be disclosed to the outside world. You, Zoldyck's family tradition. Why don't you lie to me, old man? Netero glanced at Maha with a half smile and said, oh? I've been friends with Jaeger for decades, and I've never heard him mention this? However, since you said it was a secret, old man. Of course the old man won't ask too much. However, it's okay to take a look. Netero put on an attitude of not being ashamed to ask, staring at Maha with piercing eyes and said, Roy didn't see that knife clearly, so please trouble me, old man. Show your hand, let me open my eyes. Eye open. Which eye open? The one behind the ass. Maha yawned. Human, when you get older, you tend to get sleepy. Look. I fell asleep again. Ha, 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 ha. The little old man rolled his eyelids and left Netero with a rejection back. Netero just gritted an old tooth. There is really nothing to do with this old man who pretends to be confused. Just don't make it difficult for yourself. Snorted coldly, calmed down, silently went. Fortunately, I didn't fight this time. The bean-faced man standing in the corner like a stone statue quietly stretched out a hand to wipe the sweat from his forehead. Almost thought he was going to fight again. Suffering from an indiscriminate disaster. But looking at Maha and Netero, neither of them paid attention to the other, each with their own concerns. Quietly let go. It's to blame. I can only blame Roy Zoldyck. Why does this guy always do things that people can't imagine? The bean-faced man looked at the TV speechlessly. In the picture Roy chopped Sayu down with a knife. Chic and scary coexisted. And immediately scared Libo and the others. Look. Let me just say it, Master Sayu is not the opponent of that Roy Zoldyck. Standing behind Reber, cast a provocative glance at next to him, stretched out one hand back and forth, the other's brain collapsed. The angry, can only hold back even if he is angry in his heart, who told him to be wrong. Ouch, lighten up. Don't blame Master Sayu for being weak. Who would have thought that Roy Zoldyck would be so strong? I can't bear a knife, but he is still a 12 earthly branch. In my opinion, it's better to give up the seat of Shanao, and give it to the boss. Yelled angrily after suffering the pain. Don't hurt me. Liber casually ate the big fortune cake, watching Sayu rolling all over the floor. For some reason, he felt a little dark in his heart. Maid, the monkey dove occupies the magpie's nest. You are too deceitful. You dare to say that big fortune cakes are difficult. He deserves to have such a calamity today. But Liber also has a self-knowledge. If I were to sit, I wouldn't be able to handle Roy Zoldyck's knife just now. After all, no matter how bad Sayu is, he is also a double breaker of the 12 earthly branches. He is much stronger than Libo, a single level limiter. Looking at it this way. Don't say it's me, Liber. A few more earthly branches can't stop this guy Roy Zoldyck. Kaba. Bite off the big fortune biscuit in one bite, and the exasperated coxcomb-headed examiner pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, squinting at the ring. A big foot appeared on the surveillance screen, and it stepped on Sayu's chest. The blind man was slightly drunk, watching the monkey condescendingly, and let out a shrill scream. His expressionless face dissipated his domineering look. Take the knife and slap Sayu's face. The monkey no longer had the arrogance before, and looked at Roy in horror. The opponent's figure was infinitely tall, directly covering the brilliance above his head. You won. Roy Zoldyck, get your feet quickly. Grinning his teeth is not enough to describe the ugliness of this guy. When you hit me with a stick just now, that's not what you said. Roy hiccuped and smiled coldly. I don't know if he was really drunk or what. His body tilted, and the weight of his whole body leaned on the foot that was stepping on Sayu's chest. Sayu only it felt like being hit head-on by a hill. I rolled my eyes in pain, and almost passed out. Hi, hee. Who said you lost? See, you didn't mention anything about compensation. Do you look like you've lost the battle? Kaka. The ATM machine of power is hidden in Roy's body, and he is already hungry and thirsty. Is there any reason in the world that you won't lose money if you hit someone? But, Uncle, Dao-sensei, it seems like you are the one who beats up. Gone. Leorio, Kurapika. They looked at each other and looked at each other. Sure enough, this is also the big uncle Nakao-sensei. Losing money. Why didn't you King say that Sayu was so depressed that he wanted to vomit blood? He was cut and he didn't say anything. And he still had to come up and step on him. It seems that I shouldn't have taken this job in the first place. The monkey almost suffocated without taking a breath. Tremblingly, he took out a bank card from his pocket and threw it to Roy. Password, XXXXXXX. Damn. I'll give you all my money. You should let me go this time, right? Although the monkey is ugly, it is very good. Roy put his bank card in his pocket, and Zhanyan smiled at Sayu. 2 rows of white teeth, under the light. The reflection in Sayu's triangular eyes. Can't help but make his heart skip a beat. You. Roy Zoldyck, what do you want to do? The terrified monkey cries resounded in all directions of the ring. The blind man pointed at Sayu's big mouth with a straight blade and sharp tip, and said with a smile. Sayu. How can I swim without returning to the west? Just open your mouth and it won't hurt soon. QNMs. Roy Zoldyck, you dare to kill me? Da. Puff. As soon as the knife fell, Sayu's eyes suddenly widened before he finished speaking. Witnessing that the stick knife was inserted from his mouth, and then penetrated the back of his head with it and sank into the ground. Then, as Roy said, the pain left Sayu. And his life along with it. Time also seems to have a brief freeze as Roy's knife fell. The monitoring room at the bottom of the trap tower. The office of the chairman and vice president of the Hunter Association. Fell into a strange state of dead silence at the same time. Kill the examiner, or earthly branch? He's really so courageous. Pariston forgot to drink the red wine he was waking up to, and saw Roy make and pull out his staff and knife expressionlessly. There were circles of fluctuations in his pupils, and he was completely naked. Yes, that's it. That's how it should be. Otherwise it would be boring. Zishu tugged at his tie. After being dazed, he was trembling with excitement. He hasn't seen such a fierce toy for a long time. The corner of his mouth hooked, he picked up the goblet with his hands, and finished the cup in one gulp. Red wine in, Sabarasi. The president should be satisfied with this result. Thank you. It doesn't matter whether the old man is satisfied or not. Old man, you should be satisfied, right? The president's office. Netero looked at Maha with a blank face. The old face with white hair and beard made it difficult to see clearly. Hey, just laugh if you want, boy. Maha opened his eyes, rolled his eyes at Netero and said, my grandson helped you get rid of a spy. Isn't this exactly what you want? That being said, but Sayu is one of the 12 earthly branches after all. Netero twirled his beard and said, he's dead, someone should make it up. Maha was shocked. Old man, why do I smell a smell of being poached? What's the matter? I want to be a grandpa and want to be crazy, and I have a crush on my family Roy. Anyway, he's not welcome at your house. Shit. Tell you it's impossible. Maha glared at Netero. Netero smiled coldly, and said noncommittally, stop pretending, old man, you can't be Roy's master. What's more, my Hunter Association lacks everything, except money. Maha. Damn, backed by V5 is amazing. Isn't that? It's just amazing. It is rare for Netero to see Maha's distraught look, and he is indescribably happy. Maybe. Your grandson will be mine in a second. This is not impossible. After all, as long as he is still sitting as the president of the Hunter Association for a day, Roy won't say anything else. Nominally became his Netero's person. So. Let it go. Waving his hand to wake up, a person who pretended to be a stone statue and pretended to be addicted to bean noodles, Netero made a phone call. Instructed Lieber to open the secret door. As for how to dispose of Sayu's body, Netero didn't mention a word. Lieber also wisely didn't ask. After hanging up the phone, he took a deep breath, stood up, opened the secret door with his 2 younger brothers, and appeared in front of Roy. Congratulations on passing the test in the first half of this round. Please go to the lounge to rest for a while, and wait until this round of testing is officially over. I will send a flying boat to take you to the next examination room. Lieber bowed his body and made a please gesture. The second general, Hum-Ha, who was following him, lowered his head, looked at each other quietly, and looked at each other. This was the first time they saw each other. To their boss. The biggest boss of the trap tower, who treats a person so humbly. That's right. It's groveling. In the past, no matter how good some candidates are, the director should ignore them, and never treat them as a thing. Now. The second general, Ha-Ha, took a sneak peek at Sayu, who was standing dead in the ring. Sure enough, being strong means you can do whatever you want. Did you bring the big fortune pancake? With the stick knife drawn out, a column of blood spewed out. Roy looked at Libo and the others with a smiling look, not at all surprised that they would appear. After all, no matter what, monkeys are counted as the 12 earthly branches. How much face is given by the other party? Of course I don't know, is it the face of the dead, or the face of the living? How does Roy Zoldyck know about Daifuku? Lieber. With a forced laugh, he took out a bag of Dafu biscuits from his pocket, and handed it to Roy. But he bumped into the pale eyes of the blind man head on, and his heart shuddered. Don't gouge your eyes and sell them. Didn't you see that there are 3 people on our side? Roy glared at Lieber. Who should be buried in a bag? Put it here. Oh, yes. Yes. Yes, look at my eyes. I really don't have a good eye recently, SMY Masai. The corner of Lieber's mouth twitched twice, and he laughed along with it. Heartbroken, he took out another 4th-generation Daifuku biscuit and handed it to Roy. An extra bag? You guys looked at Sao, but you didn't expect such a low level of education. You can't count. Who the hell can't count? There are 4 people behind you, okay. Oh, Tompa, he's not a human being. At best a mascot. Roy shook his hands and threw out 3 bags of Daifuku biscuits, which were given to Gon, Kurapika, Leorio. Thank you, Uncle, Tano-sensei. After the battle, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio finally came out of the tunnel. Roy groaned, ignored them, opened the packaging bag, threw a piece of Dafu biscuit into his mouth, chewed it, and spat it out again with a baw. What kind of food is so unpalatable? It seems that you are not educated enough, and you don't have enough taste. That's it. It's hard for people not to doubt whether you are a proper examiner after you left the front teeth. Thank you for being insulted so far. The back door is fine, not old, you care about it. Lieber had cross veins on his forehead, suppressed his inner anger, and said with a smile, the lounge has a special food supply, all of which are in the association. The gourmet food made by Hunter. I believe you will be able to find your favorite dishes there. How despicable. Boss. Humph. The second general clenched his fists, and was about to be moved, and cry. That is Roy Zoldyck, replaced by another person, appointed to lie on the ring like Sayu to stand up. Oh, gourmet Hunter. Reminiscent of Men Chi and Shahara. Actually it's not that good. But the food provided for free, the requirements can't be too high. At least it doesn't cost penny, isn't it? Shaking his hand, he popped out an armed sex thread and tied up Tompa, who had fainted. Roy casually threw the remaining bag of big fortune cookies to Gon, glanced at Libo and said, lead the way ahead. Lieber lowered his head and replied, when he led Roy, Gon, Kurapika, and Leorio to the lounge. With a sound of squeak, the heavy stone door opened and a few gazes cast their gazes. The familiar perverted laughter resounded. Oh ho ho ho. Oh ho ho ho, my Tien Wei, I finally waited for you. One day is like 3 autumns, 72 hours is still too long. Wow. Hisoka stretched out a finger and pushed down the pyramid of playing cards in front of him. His eyes fixed on Roy, and he couldn't help but licked his lips. It's the smell of blood. Who will be lucky enough to die under your knife? Oh ho ho ho, it's really enviable. Calm down, please. Ilmi leaned his back against the wall and cast a sideways glance at Hisoka, and his gaze was also fixed on Roy. The blind brother, as usual, threw Tompa on the ground with a flick of his hand. Then self-consciously, he took off the wine gourd hanging from his waist, and took a sip of wine into his mouth. Reminder. Experience value +1. Current cumulative experience value, 5 points. Tisk. Monkey is not as good as Netero. It can provide a lot of experience. Killing him is only 5 o'clock, which is really disappointing. After taking a sip of wine, Roy called out to Lieber, who was about to dodge when he turned around, in dissatisfaction. Hey, can you call Netero and ask? The monkey's corpse can be sold for some money. Does he really not consider collecting his corpse? Lieber and the second general, hum-ha, almost staggered and fell to the ground. Duh. Everyone is dead and you have given you the money, and you are still thinking about selling their bodies. Sure enough, he is indeed a member of the world's #1 killer family. It's just King cold-blooded. Lieber turned back and pushed the glasses on the bridge of his nose, took a deep breath and said, Roy Zoldyck, correct me. The one you killed was not a monkey monster, but the 12 earthly branches. Master Sayu should have told you before. As for whether to collect his body, I will reply to you later after I have asked the president for instructions. Roy waved his hand. Forget it. I guess Netero can't do anything about this matter. He has to ask his son to force him to adopt him. If I meet him one day, I'll just ask him for the mortality fee, so that the monkey doesn't die in vain, right? Mada. Those who didn't know thought you were so kind. If Sayu knew about it, he might turn into a ghost and bite you to death in the middle of the night. Lieber couldn't bear it any longer, and shook his head. Farewell. Without looking back, he left the lounge with the hum-ha second general. In the huge lounge, besides Hisoka and Ilfans, several well-known candidates have also arrived here one after another. For example, Hanzo, Qingli, Gusi, Babu, Burns, Greta and others witnessed Lieber's departure, and heard the conversation between Roy and Lieber. They couldn't help scratching their ears. It seems that I heard something amazing. What monkey? What 12 earthly branches? Worry, no way. Dao Sensei, this is killing the top executives of the Hunter Association, those legendary 12 earthly branches, right? That's right, it's exactly what you imagined. Leorio tugged at his tie, was dragged aside by Hanzo, and asked in a low voice. After learning what just happened in the ring, the waiting room turned into a noisy room. The exclamation and the sound of air conditioning burst out together. Everyone carefully peeked at Roy, and secretly warned themselves that it seemed you should have gotten used to it by now. Oh ho ho ho, I see. So it's Sayu from the 12 earthly branches. That guy is really lucky. If death is luck. In fact, you can be lucky now too. Gitaraker, who is the incarnation of Ermi, glanced at the excited Hisoka and pointed at him. Hisoka stretched his waist, understood what Yi Ermi meant, and curled the corner of his mouth into a deep versus shape. Yes. Don't worry. At least not now. So, you're a hypocrite. Ilmi leaned against the wall and didn't look at Hisoka at all. Looks shifted to Roy. Killed the blind brother of the 12 earthly branches. The cloud is calm and the wind is light, looks like. Doesn't seem to realize. He's in big trouble. Hi, Pariston, I heard that Sayu is dead? In the vice president's office, the phone on Pariston's desk rang. Zishu was not surprised to receive a call at this time, playing with the goblet in his hand, and said with a smile, well, as expected of Master Byongda, the news is well informed. That's right, Sayu is dead, and the one who killed him was Roy Zoldyck. Zoldyck? Great name. Kajin Empire, in a luxurious palace. Wearing a robe, a wooden hairpin in his head, and a beautiful long beard. The burly man stood quietly in front of the window, looking at the black whale that was almost completed not far away, grinning his mouth, revealing those neat teeth under the black beard. Zoldyck is good, Maha Zoldyck. Jaeger Zoldyck. But they are all people who have been to the Dark Continent. The old man still has Jaeger Zoldyck's notebook. And now there's another Roy Zoldyck. I guess he can kill Sayu. At least triple limit. Yes, the Zoldyck family has a lot of talents. As for whether it is a triple limit, Polystone took a sip of the red wine, and said with a meaningful smile, who knows? That guy is currently showing a double limit strength. But he gives me the feeling. Is particularly dangerous, even if I see him kill the triple limit breaker one day. I won't be surprised. Paris talking Dayton after a pause, he said with a faint smile. After all, he is a man who can fight against your father without losing the wind. The other end of the phone suddenly fell into a brief silence. It took a while to hear a voice that was more surprising than Yongda. Did he fight my father? When did it happen? A few days ago. Pariston raised his legs. I copied a video here, do you want to watch it? Send it over. Byongda said without hesitation. 70 billion. Pariston leaned forward and put the goblet on the desk. Billion. Are you still the Pariston I know? 70 billion. Why don't you grab it? Hearing the other end of the phone, it fell into silence again. Pallister spread his hands helplessly. There is no way to compare with Mr. Yongda. I also paid a lot of money to get it. Believe me, 70 billion, I didn't ask you for a cent. Well. I see. Byongda hung up the phone with a snap, shaking his head and sighing. The traitor has betrayed. Say 70 billion? Isn't this something that the other party should send over when he opens his mouth? It's a pity. Palestine is destined not to be as useful as Sayu. Byongda looked out of the window, and the huge black whale was quietly crouching in the port, and its figure was like a small island. There were countless workers climbing up and down on it, busy. Byongda looked at it quietly, without any sadness in his eyes. It seems that compared with the dark continent that is about to be explored, it seems that the death of a Sayu is not a big deal. It's Roy Zoldyck. Since he bears the name Zoldyck and can kill Sayu, he should be a good partner. Byongda took a deep breath. Not to mention that the other party was able to fight back and forth with his stubborn father. Even if his father didn't take it seriously, it was amazing enough. Squeak. At this moment, the gate of the palace was pushed open, and the guard poked his head out, interrupting Byongda's thoughts. Lord Byongda, His Highness the Fourth Prince has a message. Charadonish. Byongda frowned. I can't say how much I like this one. To be precise, it's twice cooked pork. The few princes in front of the row can't say how much they like it. The fourth prince especially hates it. Human nature is inherently evil, and I have experienced it vividly from this guy. Even Byongda thinks he is not a good person, but he is playing with this. What kind of pervert? How disgusting is he? Look. You can be regarded as a great kind person compared to Yongda. Come on. What does he want to collect, this time? Byongda coldly glanced at the guard who sent the message. The guard seemed to be used to it, and opened his mouth to spit out the 3 words, fiery red eyes. His Royal Highness heard that there are traces of fire red eye in Yukishin City. So, please get it as soon as possible, Mr. Byongda, and give it to your highness. Hee. Lao Su is not his tool. Byongda stroked his beard expressionlessly and said, there are gangsters gathered in Yukishin City. Your highness wants to be red-eyed, so I will issue a reward order on the black market immediately. I think there will be many criminal groups willing to work for His Highness the Fourth Prince. Understood. Squeak. The gate of the palace was closed again, and the guards returned with this news. Leaving Byongda alone by the window, looking at the black whale, I don't know what I'm thinking. Trap Tower. The allotted 72 hours have expired. Lieber's voice came into the lounge through the loudspeaker. The time is up. Congratulations to all the candidates who have passed this round of exams. Next, please follow me on board the flying boat and go to the next exam location. Is it finally over? Hanzo looked away, and there were less than 30 people in the lounge. That means most of the candidates kneeled in this round. The rest are all elites, such as old faces. Bub, Pence, Bokuer, Chingli, Gusi, Greta, etc. Another example is Gon, Kahlua, Kurapika, Leorio, Hisoka, Gitaraker. Of course. The most important thing. In, well-known manga artist. Dao Sensei. Shua. Roy's upper body was bare, revealing the solid muscles of the granite slab, and a wine gourd hanging from his waist. Holding a staff knife in both hands, he swung the knife across the flickering space like no one else. The power is mediocre. Like wielding a wooden stick. But no one dares to step forward to disturb him. After all, if you are confused by the appearance of a blind man, the dead 12 earthly branches, Sayu, is a good example. 9,997, 9,998, 9,999, 10,000. As soon as the knife comes out, the tip of the knife trembles. With Roy's wrist flipping, clang, the stick knife is sheathed. Today's Wanban Sujun has been achieved. Roy can't remember how long it's been since he practiced the sword. This time he picked up the sword technique again. He just felt refreshed. His whole body was transparent and smooth, and he was indescribably refreshed. The panel also reminded him wittily Dao. Experience value +1. Current cumulative experience value, 8 points. In other words, it's not far away from accumulating 10 experience points and hitting speed limit breaking. I practiced the sword 3 times in 2 days, and gained 3 experience points. The remaining 2 points may be earned by fishing on the battleship island. What? Uncle, what is Gunkanjima? Gon went online and heard Roy's raving. Beside him, Kurapika raised his head and glanced at Roy quietly, then pondered. It should be the name of the next level. You idiot. Haven't you seen that Mr. Tianwei has the ability to predict the future? Leorio squinted at Gon. The hedgehog-haired kid shook his head and suddenly realized. I don't know how to say he is really naive still stupid. Mr. Tianwei, what do you think we should pay attention to in the next level? Leorio licked his face and moved closer. The movement of the good-for-nothing uncle rubbing his hands is really wretched. Roy glanced at him blankly, holding a stick knife in his hand, and turned his pale blind eyes upwards. His gaze seemed to penetrate after getting out of the trap tower and seeing the flowing clouds in the sky. He smiled meaningfully and said, I have a hunch that the sky seems to be about to change. What change? Kurapika and Leorio looked at each other, looking at each other. Unfortunately, Roy lost interest in talking, looked away, and said softly, open. With a sound of squeak, the heavy hidden door opened, and he immediately stretched his waist. Under the gaze of many eyes, he walked towards the dark side in front of his head. Uncle, wait for me. You still haven't said why the sky has changed. With a flick of the fishing rod on his shoulder, Gon kicked his short legs and turned his head towards a white-haired man holding a skateboard. The stinky brother made a grimace. And then, in the eyes of Kahlua thinking about Kay, he smiled and chased Roy's back. Let's go too. You can't let Tiano-sensei take the lead by himself. Oh ho ho ho, Tianwei. My Tianwei. Have not met for a long time, are we going to say goodbye again? Ah, bah. Hisoka, that's why love will disappear, right? The way you lick a dog is really disgusting. A certain man with nails spurned glanced at Hisoka, followed by Hanzo, Qing Li, Go Si and the others rushed towards the secret door slowly. Soon after, outside the trap tower, the sky was clear and blue. Liber was already waiting for Roy and others outside. Seeing the blind man approaching, he simply pretended not to see it, lowered his head and snapped his fingers. Buzz. The sound of the propeller crushing the air came out. A flying ship slowly rose from behind Liber. Dang, and lowered the gangway. Ah. Li Bo coughed dryly, attracted the attention of all the candidates, and said in a deep voice, every candidate, congratulations on successfully escaping the trap tower. I am the most wanted bonus hunter and the director of the Criminal Office 8. Now I would like to invite everyone to board the flying ship immediately. Yeah. I can make a flying boat again. Gon looked at the flying boat excitedly, remembering the last adventure with Kahlua. He couldn't help but look at Kahlua again. The white-haired stinky younger brother let out a cut, and secretly cursed, Turtle, quietly lurking in the crowd, hiding away from Roy. Fortunately, Roy didn't go to see him, said softly, let's go. In the next second, with a lift of his foot, the person had disappeared before everyone's eyes, and appeared in the cabin of the flying ship. This kind of ghostly speed. Sure enough, the big uncle, Mr. Tianwei. Leorio glared at Gon, and slapped him on the back of the head with a slap. Don't get too excited, idiot. Have you forgotten what happened on the flying boat last time? At that time, Roy's domineering look came out. The experience of the whole grilling was not so wonderful. Not to mention that the follow-up flying ship is in danger of crashing at any time, and threatened by thunderstorms and strong air currents, it may face the danger of disintegration at any time. It really makes people tremble with fear when they think about it now. Hey, Leorio is right. Tonpa witnessed Roy boarding the boat and showing up with a big bag on his head. He glanced at the crowd maliciously and said, remind you in a word, that guy just said that there seems to be a change in the sky. So, I guess, maybe in a while, the flying ship will encounter some kind of storm. Tonpa Kimbo. Hey, for everyone's safety, if you want to give up, you can give up now. Otherwise. With the sound of an armed lustline suddenly interrupted Tonpa, dragging him onto the airship like dragging a dead dog. Vori. Again? Goddammit Roy Zoldyck. I'm not done with you. Tonpa screamed and hit the gangway. Poorly, he didn't wake up for a long time, and passed out again. Gon, Leorio, Kurapika and Hanzo, Babu and other candidates. I couldn't help shivering. Tisk. What a tragedy. Oh ho ho ho. Is it miserable? Hisoka looked at Tonpa jealously, his eyes were red. Why does this plain-looking guy get so much love from his favorite Tianwei? Tano, it's mine. Mine. So. Why don't you just kill him? The insanity relapsed. Hisoka made a swish, took out a joke card, put it on the tip of his tongue and licked it. Before he could move, he was poured cold water on his head by Yi or Me, and he calmed down. If you kill him, you won't survive. Just in time. Roy passed the window and glanced here. Hisoka's shoulders trembled, and his mouth turned into a deep verses. That's right. There's no rush. The most tempting apple. Of course I have to save it for the last taste. Guo Nong put away the ghost cards, and the killing intent that suddenly emanated from him disappeared in the air at the same time. He stepped on the clown shoes and didn't stay in the trap tower at the moment. He walked along the gangway and slowly boarded the flying boat. Don't be Tonpa, that guy lied. At this time, Kurapika reminded everyone. With Teacher Tianwei here, are you still afraid of accidents with the flying ship? Don't you forget, who dispersed the thundercloud at that time. That's right. A word awakened the person in the dream. Hanzo, Babu, Burns, Qingli, Go Si, Greta and others present. All withstood Roy's overbearing arrogance. The group of people who didn't faint. They witnessed the scene of Roy fighting the sky with a knife. So. I'm afraid of a fart. If there is a storm, everyone will raise funds to ask Mr. Tianwei to help. Tread. The sound of footsteps sounded. A group of examinees who came back to their senses enthusiastically boarded the flying boat. On the side, Lieber took all this into his eyes, gently pushed his eyes on the bridge of his nose, and couldn't help but sighed in his heart. Although I don't want to admit it. But Roy Zoldyck undoubtedly became the backbone of this group of candidates. With a small glimpse into the big picture, you can imagine. What will happen to Roy Zoldyck in the future after he enters the Hunter Association? Based on his current charisma, maybe the president can do it. Worry. What am I thinking? Lieber was taken aback by his sudden thought, and peeked at Luo who had already taken off with the flying ship. Through the porthole, the blind man waved his hands at him with a half-smile. His intuition was so keen that he seemed to see through him at a glance. The whole Lieber shuddered uncontrollably and hurriedly lowered his head. It wasn't until the flying ship flew higher and higher. In an instant, it got into the clouds and disappeared. The ultimate big boss of the trap tower. The one-star wanted bounty hunter. He dared to raise his head, took out his mobile phone, and dialed a phone number. Hey, Roy Zoldyck, Uncle Dana, I'm heading for you. Come yet? On Battleship Island, a certain old couple had been waiting for a long time. Hearing the phone ringing, an old woman who was drying clothes on the deck of an abandoned warship shouted into the gazebo converted from the cabin. Old man, who is it? Gina, who was wearing a pair of reading glasses on the bridge of his nose, whispered, it's Lieber. Then he smiled and said to the mobile phone. Got it. When you get old, you like to watch the younger generations pop up one after another. I heard that this Roy Zoldyck can fight against the president, and he won't lose the wind. Old man, to be honest, I can't wait to meet him. I don't think you want to see. Lieber curled his lips. A guy who dares to say that Defube is not delicious is a heretic no matter how strong. Let alone. Uncle Gina, your news has lagged. Roy Zoldyck, he killed Sayu-sama. Who? Old man, I'm deaf. Can you say it again? See if I dare to listen. The old man Gina was stunned for a moment, and the reading glasses slipped down the bridge of his nose, revealing the pupils that shrunk to the size of pinpoints because of being too surprised. I said, Master Sayu died under the knife of that guy Roy Zoldyck. Didn't you see that guy go down with a knife? He almost cut him off from the ring. It's really exaggerated. Dangling, the water cup placed on the wooden table fell to the ground and the sound of tea spilling was transmitted to the deck, attracting the attention of the old woman. What's wrong? Gina. Bana poked her head out. Gina suddenly came back to his senses. Oh, it's okay. But that trembling voice could not hide from his Grandma Bana who had been with him day and night and lived his whole life. Grandma Bana frowned. To be honest, what happened? Gina helped the reading glasses that almost fell to the ground following the water glass, sighed, yay, and said to his wife, Libo said, Mr. Sayu is dead. Nonsense. What kind of characters are the 12 earthly branches? Granny Bana stared, and said in disbelief, Libo, you're not kidding me, Grandma, are you? The fact that Master Sayu was killed by an examinee in the hunter test. It spread. Don't say that V5 countries are the Kajin Empire, no one will believe it. But. That's the truth. Libo said solemnly, Master Sayu died before my eyes. Also, Andy Banner, Uncle Jenna. I would like to remind you. When it's time to release the water. Don't treat Roy Zoldyck like an ordinary examinee. Let alone get angry he. Otherwise. You all know what will happen to Master Sayu now. Gina and Bana couple. They looked at each other, and they both saw a trace of embarrassment in each other's eyes. This sigh didn't stop until Libo hung up the phone. After the Doomian man called again, he was still strong and there was no sign of dissipating. Oh ho, is it Gina? The examinee will come to your place later. Remember to watch out for a blind man. What blind man? Boy, I think you don't respect my grandson at all. In the president's office, Maha glared at Netero. The president of the conference glanced at him, ignored him at all, and simply turned his back, and continued to stare at Gina and Banner couple through the mobile phone. Yes. That blind man is Roy Zoldyck. Yes. Sayu was killed by him. The boy has a bad temper. You are a young man, he is a bit angry. Not much more normal. What? You want to retire early? Want to change the invigilator? This is not allowed. How about it? The old man acquiesces in letting you release the water. When that boy Roy arrives, what does he want to do? Just don't stop him. Bar. Good. The old man knows. Don't worry, with the old man here, you and your husband will surely spend your old age peacefully. That's it. Next time when you come back, the old man will treat you to tea, ha ha ha. Beep, beep, the phone hung up. In the abandoned warship, an old man and an old lady wiped the cold sweat from their foreheads together. Have never experienced this kind of stress, for many years the feeling of mountain big. The thing about releasing water comes from the president's mouth. Why'd I think it's so untrue? Jenna was a little dazed. Maybe it's, how do you say that sentence? Eclectic. What? Granny Barna patted her forehead. Look, my brain is getting worse. Gina said faintly. It's eclectic talent. That's right. That's right. It's eclectic to drop talents. Granny Barna sighed and said, Gina, we are really old, so we will follow the instructions of the chairman. B. So what if you don't follow suit? Jenna shook his head. Could it be possible to follow the example of Master Sayu and seek death? Okay. Old lady, let's hang the clothes. Tonight we have to pack up and run away. What about Roy Zoldyck? Special matters, special considerations, special treatment, all according to that kid, can't it be enough? The back wave has become. These front waves, disobedient, have no other choice but to be ruthlessly slapped on the beach. Hula. A gust of sea breeze blows to cool off the heat, but it is slightly cold. Not long after leaving the trap tower, the airship carried Roy and his party to the sky above Gunkan Island. Wow, it's the island, uncle, I saw the island, lying on the porthole of the flying boat and looking down. On the endless sea. An island that looks like a warship appeared in front of Gon, Kurapika, Leorio and other candidates. The island is surrounded by silent ships. All shipwrecked. And since it is a sunken ship, it represents wealth. Roy is playing with an armed sex thread with his fingers, and the fishing spirit is ready to move. Hee, good shipwreck. The blind man laughed. Hanzo, Babu, Burns, Chingli, Greta, and others, as if they trembled inexplicably, and their hearts were terrified. Mr. Tianwei, every time you laugh, you say it is scary. As a die-hard fan of Roy, Bao Kuer rubbed his teeth, and also hugged himself tightly. Only a certain good-for-nothing uncle leaned against the side of the boat due to seasickness, and said half-deadly, it's fine, just let me get off the boat quickly. Seems to have heard Leorio's prayer. The flying boat descended slowly. It stopped on the deck of the warship island. Hey, old man, our guest seems to have arrived. Not long after drying the clothes, Banagina yelled. Gina raised her drooping head, pushed her eyes on the bridge of her nose, took a deep breath, and came to the deck with a solemn face and stood side by side with Grandma Banna. Buzz. The sound of the propeller stirring the air became smaller and smaller. The flying boat docked steadily on the deck. Then, the gangway was lowered. A person with a height of 2.5 meters walked down first. A blind man about 2.6 meters. He was shirtless, revealing the muscles of the granite slab on his upper body. A huge wine gourd was tied around his waist, and he was walking slowly with a stick knife in his hand. Stay in front of Gina, Banna and his wife. The pair of pale and blind eyes swept down. Gina and Banna, the old fathers, felt tense, and felt that they were back in the hospital, undergoing an X-ray examination. A thought came to Chi-Chi's mind. The husband and wife were given by the other party. See-through. Oh? 2 first-level limit breakers. One strength breaks the limit and the other speed limit. Able to keep going at this age. It seems that the Hunter Association is not all waste like Sayu. Oh, cough cough. I think this is Roy Zoldyck, such sharp eyes. Gina and Banner couple were startled, and looked at each other quietly, and they all saw a trace of horror in each other's eyes. This kind of thing can be seen through the two of them at a glance. Netero has done it in the past. Now there is obviously another one. It can only be said that the young man in front of him who can envelop their husband and wife just by his shadow, is indeed the person who the president personally called to tell him to release the water. Tap, after Roy, Gon, Kahlua, Kurapika, Leorio, Hisoka, Hanzo and other candidates came out of the airship one after another. Seeing that everyone is almost here, Ginabana and his wife smiled slightly, bowed to the candidates and said, Candidates, welcome to our hotel. So polite. Are they really the examiners for this level? Leorio barely got out of the state of seasickness, looked weakly at the Ginabana couple and said. It's not necessarily. I don't feel any danger from them. Gon's nose twitched. The Denabanes really seem to be running a hotel here. So, what does it mean that the sky will change? Kurapika glanced at Gon, then secretly glanced at Roy, and finally his eyes fell on the Ginabana couple. The faces of the old couple are gentle. It seems that they are only a little nervous when facing Mr. Tianwei. There is no other strange place. At this time, Hanzo couldn't bear his temper and walked out. You said that you really run a hotel here, right? Yeah. Gina looked at Hanzo gently and said, the ship you are stepping on is the one we remodeled. The hotel that is now providing you with accommodation. And stop talking nonsense, old man. Hanzo interrupted Jenna with his hands, bypassed Roy, came up to the two, glared at them condescendingly and said, you two must be the examiners of this level, right? That's right. Bana looked past Hanzo, and said to the candidates behind him, now I will first convey the message from the Hunter Committee to you. Qualified candidates, hard work on the third trial. The fourth trial of the next level will start in 3 days. For these 3 days, all candidates are invited to take a good rest here. Oh? Really? After taking a sip of wine, Roy looked at the Genabana couple with a half-smile, and X-rayed the couple's heart. Again. What is this guy Roy Zoldyck trying to say? Genabana and his wife quietly swallowed a mouthful of saliva, facing Roy's pale and blind eyes. Then the blind man sneered and said, I'm afraid I can't rest well. 10 million rooms for one night, you two tell me, who can afford it? Genabana and his wife, shocked. F*K. How did he know the price? Could it be that the president was worried that the two of us would not be able to release the water, so he released the water again in advance? Calculated in this way, is this still called releasing water? Just call it releasing the sea. What 10 million? Mr. Tianwei means, this hotel charges 10 million Buddhist nuns for one night's stay. Hey, are you kidding me? How can you charge so much money for a hotel converted from a broken ship? After hearing Roy's words, Hanzo and the other examinees came back to their senses and glared at the Genabana couple, who looked very warm. Unexpectedly, they turned out to be a pair of black-hearted old dudes. This damn is a lion with a big mouth, sitting on the ground and raising the price. Hee, you guys, I misunderstood. It's not 10 million for the accommodation fee, but the single deposit is 10 million. The room fee is paid separately. Am I right? 2 examiners. Roy added. Looking down at Gina and Bana's words, it was like throwing a grenade at the candidates, boom, ignited the anger of all the candidates. 10 million. Or a deposit. Leorio was so pissed off from seasickness that his eyes widened. Beside him, Gon also yelled, huh. With his small brain capacity, it's hard to imagine any hotel would be so expensive. The cost is really too much. Kurapika has always been calm, and the person who doesn't easily show his emotions on his face can't bear to speak. Not to mention the fiery guys like Hanzo, Qingli, and Greta. Old man. Why don't you play with us here? 10 million is enough for me to live in a 6-star hotel for half a year. Hey. They are treating us like those princes and nobles and slaughtered us. Mad. Don't dig your eyes and sell them. You don't even look at them, there are children here. They have money. Kahlua, gone. Although what you said is reasonable. But I was insulted. Thank you. A crowd of examinees gathered around. Gina and Bana remained indifferent, and said without batting an eyelid, it's true. The deposit of 10 million nuns must not be less. Otherwise, we are afraid that there is no way for you to stay here. Of course, Bana changed her voice, looked at Roy with a smile and said, except for you. My hotel is fully open to you and provides you with free accommodation. All the rooms are up to you to choose, that is, the bedroom of our husband and wife. We will move out immediately, and we will free up a room for you. Ahem, Gina added. In addition, breakfast, lunch and dinner are also provided to you for free. I hope you can have a pleasant short trip. What do you mean? Is there a difference in treatment? Why is teacher Tianwei free? Gone. Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo and the candidates. Completely stunned. Even Roy couldn't help but sweep the Genabana couple meaningfully, a little surprised. It's just that. Is it really good? I'm fine. Others may not. A gust of cold wind blows. The deck that fell into silence suddenly exploded. MLGBD. Double standard, right? Why doesn't Mr. Tianwei need money to move in? We want money. I don't accept it. You guys are blatantly double standards. Where's the hunter test board? I'm going to complain. Damn. Is there any justice left? Don't you treat us as human beings at all? There was a lot of noise. Gon came to Luo and put his sleeves on his sleeve. Hey, uncle, do you know them? It doesn't matter. Why do you get special attention? Maybe. It's not that teacher Tianwei knew them, but they recognized teacher Tianwei. Kurapika thought for a moment, thinking about what he had seen along the way, and gave his own guess. This speculation is already close to the truth. Gina and Banago took a look at the blonde boy. focused on the ethnic style robe that the other party was wearing, and looked familiar. It seems that they have seen it somewhere. However, since Mr. Tiano can get this kind of preferential treatment, in other words, "Hey, boss, we are friends of Mr. Tianwei, can we also stay for free?" Leorio licked his face, pulled Roy's tiger skin, rubbed his hands together, and looked at the Gina and Gina expectantly. But they rejected him mercilessly. Candidates here. There are only two categories, Roy Zoldyck, and everyone else except Roy Zoldyck. If you don't have money, don't think about accommodation. Gina put her hands behind her back and coughed dryly. Of course. Our husband and wife are not people who don't talk about feelings. The old man glanced at the candidates who were filled with righteous indignation, and said slowly, "If you really don't have any money, then I have other ways to get the money from everyone." "What method?" If the old man can't come up with a good idea, be careful, he will rush at you. Hanzo, Babu, Burns and others stared at Jenna closely. Gina pushed the reading glasses on the bridge of his nose, and smiled at the shipwreck around his fingers. Yo ho 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 ho. The method of divination, of course, is to use the existing resources. Have you seen the sunken ships in the surrounding sea area? As long as you can salvage treasures of equivalent value, the hotel will be open for everyone. So, this should be the round of assessment, right? Kurapika reacted immediately, frowned and secretly looked at Roy. But what does this change in the sky have to do with it? It's a pity. The blind man didn't seem to notice his gaze. Or if he found it, he was too lazy to pay attention to him. He jumped under the eyes of the sunflowers, appeared on the bow of the warship island, sat down cross-legged, and started fishing. Good treasure. The power ATM machine hidden in the body is already hungry. It's time to charge it. By the way, the remaining 2 points of experience point liver. Whoosh. The stick knife is raised horizontally. Hundreds of armed color thoughts shoot out from the tip of the knife, sinking into the sea. Splashing waves. Like a series of spirit snakes spitting out letters, searching for treasures everywhere. Roy's fans, led by Bakuer, panicked. "Hey, Dao Sensei, this is not Ralph Drew. There is no One Piece. You said that you were free. Why don't you compete with our group of fans?" That being said, but who would dislike a lot of money? Not to mention that Roy still has the existence of the power ATM machine, a gold-eating beast. Me, the person who looks down on double standards the most in my life. So, free? Roy sneered and said, "Why should I spend the money I can for free? Are you looking down on me? You sound a little bit unreasonable, fart. Is he not good for free? What kind of nonsense is this?" Gone, Kurapika, and the candidates, indescribable envy jealousy. The corners of the Jinabana couple's mouths twitched fiercely. After living for so many years, this is the first time that they have realized what it means to have a hot face with a cold butt. Ahem. Old man. The president saw it. You shouldn't blame us for not releasing the water, right? Bana carefully glanced at the camera hidden in the corner. The faint electronic arc flashed away. In the president's office, Netero stared at the TV in a daze, his face was so weird. Ho 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 ho, it's amazing. You don't even want free treatment. Roy, this kid is not eyeing the treasures in those sunken ships. It's not my grandson who is following. It should be your kid who is following. Maha people are old and smart, and they don't bother to expose Netero's little thought. Borrowing the name of the hunter test to organize candidates to salvage the treasures in the sunken ship. Talk about picking. You are the real boss. Ho ho ho. I heard that when Roy Zoldyck was fighting the president, the Nianlong he summoned was the result of his fishing by the stream. I don't know if I can feast my eyes again this time. In the vice president's office, Pariston drank a bottle of red wine, and his face was flushed. Leaning back against the chair, he lay back. His eyes were fixed on Roy. The blind man turned a deaf ear and devoted himself to fishing. Is it an indescribable pleasure to have 2 sips of wine? When you are free, talk about wine, stop occasionally, look at the sky, white clouds, and listen to the chirping of seabirds. It can be regarded as a kind of rest. But the sun above the head is a bit tea. Hey, old man, don't you have a parasol? Gone, Kahlua, Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo, Hisoka, Ilmi and all the examinees slipped into the sea to find the treasure. The Jinabana couple and Roy are left staring at each other with indescribable embarrassment. Yes. Old woman, take out that parasol in my room, and give it to Master Roy Zoldyck, and cover it. Gina waved her hand. Grandma Bana got into the cabin, carried a parasol, stood up, and covered Roy from the scorching sun. Strength breaks the limit, Auntie is so strong. Roy rarely praised Granny Barna. Bana smiled. I can't. I'm getting old. Compared to you, Our husband and wife's meager level. It would be embarrassing to say it. Gina put her hands behind her back, and followed Barna to the back of Roy with a smile. The unnoticed eyes of the husband and wife are plated with a layer of nyen, and sacrificed ning, to look at the sea. Under the calm sea surface, countless armed sex thoughts densely filled the surrounding sea area with a radius of nearly 1 kilometer. This level of strength is really amazing. It is obvious that the capacity has broken the limit to do such an exaggerated thing. At first, Lieber called me, it's ridiculous. I still don't believe the old man. Now it seems that it is not such a surprising thing that Master Sayu can die at your hands. Gina sighed. Bana nodded approvingly. Sold Lieber without hesitation. Ribe Roy sneered. That's a smart guy, but it's not enough to move you as instructed. The blind man turned his head to look at Ginabana, and said with a half smile, it's Netero who is playing tricks behind. Sigh. President Tangtang openly signaled his subordinates to cheat. The Hunter Association is really disappointing. I didn't say that. We, husband and wife, didn't say anything. Chairman, you should have seen it, right? Ginabana couple sneaks a peek at the camera in the president's office. The corners of Netero's mouth twitched, pretending he didn't see anything, and turned his face away. Ho, so what if you were discovered? Isn't this old man doing it for your own good? If you have the ability, go and file a complaint. This old man wants to see who will sue me. On the bow, Ginabana looked at each other and smiled wryly. They couldn't accept this. He just coughed dryly and changed the subject. Ahem, young people are awesome. Old man, at your age, I would never have imagined that one day I would bring down the 12 earthly branches. Being able to do this kind of thing, I think you have already double broken the limit. The 17-year-old double limit breaker. Only in this way can he kill Sayu, and even fight with the president a few times. It's a pity. It's not unreasonable for you to be able to wear reading glasses. Roy hooked his fingers, and an armed lust thread brought out a golden cup, jumped out of the water, and landed in front of the Ginabana couple with a boom. The blind man gave them a meaningful look, and said with a smile, who told you that I broke the limit twice? Isn't it? Ginabana was taken aback. Roy smiled and said nothing. Double breaking the limit? That will soon become a thing of the past. At the most tomorrow. No. At the most tonight, I will triple the limit. Panel. What do you think? Ding. Reminder. Experience value +1. Current cumulative experience value, 9 points. It's almost 10 o'clock, and that one, tonight. Let's do the math. With the identities of the two antique hunters, you won't cheat me, a weak and helpless blind man. Jin Bei looks pretty good. Roy reckons it can sell for 7 or 8 million. Ginabana and his wife came back to their senses and said with a dry smile, naturally. No one dares to cheat you. Ginabana knows very well that her neck is not as hard as Sayu. The price is 10 million. What do you think? Gina glanced at the gold cup, but didn't look at it carefully, and directly gave the premium to Roy. Roy turned his head to look at the couple, and smiled. You are also smart. That's not right. All those who are not smart are dead. Gina laughed and said, you continue to fish, and we won't bother you. I don't know what's going on, but I'm obviously several times the age of the other party. Ginabana and his wife didn't dare to take the same age as in the original book. But they felt an overwhelming pressure from Roy, and the photos made them feel suffocated. This may be the name of a person, the shadow of a tree. The ancients do not deceive me. That will disappoint you. I advise you to bring your calculator and wait by the side. Hundreds of treasures jumped out of the water. Relying on the tyrannical knowledge and arrogance, Roy easily captured the blind spots that other candidates could not capture. So the treasures he found were far more than all the candidates. Even relying on the natural synesthesia dog nose gone is far inferior to. Wow. Uncle, are you here to fish or to catch fish? Gon opened his mouth wide. Wow. Those big innocent eyes are about to be blinded by the many babies that Roy fished. You idiot. You have time to spare. Why don't you keep looking? Leorio slapped Gon on the back of the head again. The focus is wrong, idiot. Mr. Tianwei is getting more and more. They will get less and less according to what they specify. Oh. Gon jumped into the sea aggrieved, and continued to search. With the pressure brought by Roy, more and more treasures were searched out. In the end, except for the best room, which was left to Roy by the Ginabana couple by default, everyone else was more or less assigned to a room. Even this guy Tonpa is no exception. After several farces of changing rooms, unfortunately I shared the same room with Hisoka. I really didn't expect that. I just left Roy's tiger's den, and entered Hisoka's wolf's den. At that time, the sky was getting late. The sun sank into the sea level, and the setting sun was born. It dyed half of the sky red, and it was so beautiful. Sitting cross-legged on the bow of the warship island, Roy took off the wine gourd and took a sip of the mellow and sweet wine. A kid with a hedgehog head who just took a bath, wearing a blue vest, fiddled with the fishing rod in his hand. Hey, and sat down next to Roy. With a flick of the fishing rod in his hand, he started fishing like Roy. Uncle, you are really amazing, you can easily catch more than 10 billion. You don't even know. Leorio's eyes went straight when he saw it. Gon turned his head and smiled at Roy, revealing a pair of white sky. Relying on the tyrannical knowledge and arrogance. And the large number of armed sex threads. Roy almost spent a day, and almost rounded up the sunken ships around the warship island. The treasures exchanged reached an astonishing 10 billion. It didn't hurt the attention of many candidates. Generally, money is something outside of me. In fact, I don't like money very much. Roy glanced at the panel. Where Gon couldn't see, a cartoon ATM machine jumped out. Kaba, Kaba. The wind swept through the clouds, and after a meal, it directly fed the 10 billion rings that Roy gave him, and swallowed it into his stomach. Reminder. Current power reserve, 100 tons. Master, I can still eat again. The ATM of power stretched out 2 hands to pat his stomach, looking at Roy expectantly. The corners of Roy's mouth twitched. Without saying a word, he was locked in the body directly. Bah. Does Uncle not like money? Gon looked at Roy in disbelief, as if his heart ached because of something. Accidentally, Gon saw it. He, Uncle, I don't believe you, Gon said to Roy with a smile. It's like you told me to meet my father and beat him up, it must be a joke, right? Tisk. Do you still remember? Roy looked at Gon in surprise. The little kid with the hedgehog head, the way his eyes gleamed when he mentioned his father. I really can't bear to hit him. So. Actually, I'm not joking, Gon. Roy rubbed Gon's prickly hair with his hands, and said seriously, I really suggest you wait until the day you find your father, first bring him a fishing rod and then talk. Why? Gon stared at Roy with wide eyes. Roy sighed and said, because, your father is a scum. Jin Foolishi. The high pig in the 12 earthly branches. The 2-star relic hunter. Whose achievements are enough to be promoted to the 3-star relic hunter. The nemesis of the Nen family. The creator of Greedy Island. The man who is as powerful as Netero. Contains Pariston, and one person can resist the existence of an elite army of the association. The descendant of Dong Foolishi who explored the Dark Continent 300 years ago. Look. How big is his title? Except for the fact that I haven't been to the Dark Continent yet, just based on hard power and achievements, I'm not far behind Netero, the strongest human being. But. In Roy's eyes. Jin still can't escape the fact that he is an abandoned son. He could grow up with Gon obviously. But he wanted to leave him when he was young. And created a series of clues to lure Gon to find him. Forcing Gon to play peekaboo with him. Such a father really makes Roy not like it. Uncle, my father is not a scum. Gon looked directly at Roy's blind eyes and retorted. Just like your father, he didn't actually abandon you, Ab. My dad? Silva. Roy sneered. Did Kahlua tell you? Yes. Gon dodged his eyes and pinched himself secretly, regretting that he got excited and exposed his little friend. But the honest child just doesn't say. Roy can guess with his ass that some white-haired and smelly brother is behind the scenes. Roy snorted coldly, and said quietly, Gon, if you were born and don't raise it, you will be a scum. Your father is like this. My father is also like this. Then you will beat your father too? Gon asked unconvinced. Of course. Roy squinted his eyes. When I get home, beat him right away. He still owes me the money. Gon. With Kurapika and Leorio who just climbed up, Chi-Chi turned into a pea-eyed, and almost fell down. This reason is indeed very big, Uncle, Dao-sensei. Ahem. Mr. Tianwei, good evening, don't you go back to your room to rest. Leorio kept his briefcase in his hand, for fear that someone would steal it. Half of his face was beaten into a pig's head, obviously the same as the original book. He went to take a bath carelessly, but was beaten by Sissy Kurapika, and then he ran outside to vent his anger. There is still a little bit of experience in hand. I can't rest yet. Roy didn't reply. He raised his staff and knife, and jumped out of the water with an armed sex thread. A pendant was tied to one end of the thread, and Roy casually threw it to Kurapika. What's yours is yours. Under the shining moonlight, the pure gold pendant shone with moving luster. Kurapika was surprised that Roy would give it to him. Pick it up, hold it in the palm of your hand, and look closely. The pupils shrink. As Roy said, this is his Kurapika's thing. To be precise, a relic of his Kaluta clan. Thank you. Wiping his fists, he held the pendant tightly in his palm, Kurapika lowered his head, somewhat disappointed. Leorio and Gon looked at each other. Even an idiot can detect something wrong with a good friend. The two turned their heads to look at Roy. Even if the blind man knows everything, he doesn't have the obligation to do it for Kurapika. To spread his family story everywhere. Fortunately, there is no need for Roy to speak. After several rounds of tests, Kurapika also recognized Leorio and Gon, two friends. He confessed that he is a Karuta and will definitely look for Phantom Troop in the future. Ah. No wonder. You were so excited when you saw that Chirp had a spider tattooed on his back. The answer to the mystery is revealed. Leorio and Gon instantly understood Kurapika's mood. At that time, the uncle, Mr. Tianwei, nailed the knife and forced Kurapika to kill Chihuahua. It is not unreasonable. So it seems. Uncle, you already know about Kurapika, right? Gon's stupid head finally came to his senses. Be it. To be precise, I knew it in my previous life. Roy never looked back, did not answer Gon's question, turned his back to Kurapika, and said flatly, "The words I told you before are still valid. When I think you are qualified to stand in front of me, I will give you a clue for free." How do you qualify? Kurapika bit her lip halfway, staring at Roy's back. The blind man raised his head and glanced at the night sky, and searched. The flying boat carried Jinabana and his wife, quietly left the warship island, and flew into the sky. He actually left all the candidates in this place where no shit. Waiting for death. Wait until you can pass the hunter test this time. The silent night sky exploded. All the candidates who discovered this situation hurriedly ran out of their respective rooms. Witnessing Gina and Bana leaving, they broke down in despair. Curse. Damn the dog. I'll just say there's definitely something wrong with this couple. Cooperating with them is going to hang us here to die. Old man. Give me back the 10 million deposit. Battleship Island was in a mess for a moment. On the bow, Gon, Leorio, and Kurapika were stunned, and they also looked dumbfounded. After a long while, when all the candidates had scolded enough and were tired, everyone calmed down. All the ghosts and ghosts surrounded Roy. Mr. Tianwei, tell me something, what should we do next? What to do? Roy flicked his stick knife, and a fat-headed fish jumped out of the water struggling. At the same time, the belated panel appeared in Roy's mind. Reminder. Experience value +1. Current cumulative experience value, 10 points. The experience and knowledge are tasteless. The speed limit breaking condition has been reached. May I ask if the host will break the limit immediately? Need to ask? I have been waiting for this day for a long time. With his back to all sentient beings, Roy stood up slowly. He said lightly, "Break the limit." Yes. After receiving Roy's order, the panel flashed brightly, and all 10 experience points were consumed. There was a huge change in the column belonging to the speed. Name. Roy Zoldyck. Bone age, 17. Physique. 180. Normal person 10. Speed. 199. 201. Normal person 10. Remarks. 1 level breaks the limit. Power. 231. Normal person 10. Remarks. 1 level breaks the limit. Air capacity. 270. Normal person 10. Remarks. 1 level breaks the limit. Template character. Fujitora smiles. Current unlock progress, 60%. Experience value. 10. 0. Title, King's Foundation, Overlord Domineering has been awakened. First class. Props. Power ATM machine, it consumes 100 million rings and can store 1 ton of power. Current storage capacity. 100 tons. Nyen Beast. Somersault Cloud, to be summoned. Crack. There was a crisp sound in the body, which was the feedback from the gene lock once again unlocked a heavy restriction. After the passage of time, Roy's speed finally ushered in an explosion after magnanimity and strength, transcendence and holiness stepped into the realm of ghosts and gods. Immediately, the blind man felt a sudden lightness in his body. It was as if Shen Kei was trying to step forward with an indescribable lightness and Tongtai. He disappeared out of thin air under the stupefied gazes of Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Hisoka, Ilmi, Hanzo and other candidates. Everyone felt a gust of cool wind blowing. Another glance. Roy appeared again, still staying at the original position. It was as if had never moved. What a ghost. Did I read it wrong? Uncle just disappeared for a moment, right? Gon rubbed his eyes a little uncertain. It seems to be. Leorio pulled on his sunglasses, and his expression was a little dazed. At that moment just now, his attention was all attracted by the sneaking, flying ship in the sky. He didn't notice it for a while, and didn't notice what happened at all. It just felt like a weak sea breeze was blowing past him and ate. It's a pity. The guy who has not opened aura nodes is destined to have bad eyes, whether it is compared with Kurapika's fiery red eyes, or compared with Hisoka and Ilfan's who can use condensation, Leorio and Gon are still too tender. It's not disappearing. It's simply too fast. A little spark ignited from Kurapika's amber pupils. Although he couldn't see clearly. But he could still feel the flow of air. Understand. Dao-sensei is moving. But the speed is so fast that human eyes can't catch it. Oh ho ho ho. My Dao. You seem to be getting stronger again. If I'm not mistaken, this speed should exceed the limit of mortals. Sabarasi. Damn it. How can you become more and more charming? The familiar perverted laughter sounded. Hisoka didn't stick into the crowd. He stretched out his arms and hugged himself. I was afraid that I couldn't help but pick Roy, the most delicious apple in advance. I'm glad Ermi was by his side and gave him a needle from time to time. This stabilized the ecstasy. It's just. Can human beings really break the limit of the double body in less than a month? Ermi turned into Gitteracker, looked at Roy with a complicated expression, and the nails on his face shook slightly. Obviously, he was very uneasy deep inside. However, just relying on such an action can't fully explain anything. Ho 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 ho. The old man remembers that this kid still has a good, speed, physical skill. What's the name? Old man, can you reveal a little bit to the old man? Netero glanced at Maha. The dead old man turned over and sat up from the sofa, staring at Roy in the picture, secretly a little uncertain. Is it physical skills, or pure speed? There is a world of difference between them. The former represents skill, but the latter means. Stinky boy, he seems to have broken the limit again. Maha gave Netero a squinting look. Hey, boy. The original words are for you. If you don't want your eyes, you can dig them up and sell them. Physical arts. With which eye do you see my grandson using physical arts? What he understands is speed limit. You also experienced it. By a high-speed old man, can't you understand? That's right, speed breaks the limit. Speed breaks the limit. Netero chewed these two sentences, and in Furui Webo's eyes, there was a rare round after circle of fluctuations. Who said I can't understand? It's because I can see it clearly, so I can't accept it for a while. Roy, this guy just broke the limit not long ago. He broke the limit again in a blink of an eye. Hee, it's really hard not to make people suspect that he is not your Zoldyck family. Old man, you are as talented as you. When you were young, you weren't as outrageous as him. Maha. Do you want to stop watching? Maid, old man, I also think. This kid is exaggerated to the point of being unreal. The two old men, who are nearly 500 years old together, stared straight at the TV. A certain mouse on the first floor of the TV was exactly the same as them. The mood of drinking was gone. Rarely, I came to the bathroom, washed my face, then turned back and stared at the TV. Big toy. This is the rhythm of transforming into Gundam. Did I still underestimate you? Roy Zoldyck. Pariston's eyes flickered. The corners of his mouth curled into a deep versus shape. At that time, Roy's little test on the warship island caused a sensation, gradually overshadowed by flying ships flying higher and higher. Hanzo stroked his bald head and reminded everyone sharply. Don't lose focus, hey. Mada, these two old dudes have no good intentions and left us to run away. Teacher Tianwei, tell me, what should we do now? Everyone spent a huge amount of money to open the house. As a result, before taking off their pants, they were told that the young lady came and couldn't come. This is not just taking a group of them. Well, uncle can bear it and auntie can't bear it. That's, Mr. Tianwei, you give me a rule, and we will all obey you. In the world of Hunter, strength is king. They are all old people who have passed the customs all the way, and finally got here. How many know each other? Roy's performance has always been seen by everyone. Usually he doesn't show it. Now he encounters difficulties. But he burst out. If Liber, the coquettish coxcomb man, was here, he would definitely sigh again. TM's Roy Zoldyck, more and more has the fan of being the president. However, since the problem came out, let's solve it. Roy looked up at the flying ship that was submerged in the clouds, and grinned. They can fly, and so can we. 10 million people. I am Roy Zoldyck. I am willing to take everyone for a flight. Candidates. They looked at each other and looked at each other. Cough, Hanzo coughed dryly and said, Tano-sensei, everyone knows that you can't fly. But even so, you alone can't bring a group of us. Yes, uncle. Gon stared at his big innocent eyes, and gently tugged at Roy's sleeve. Why don't you go alone, uncle, and leave us alone? I agree with Gon's opinion. Kurapika glanced at everyone, pondered and said to Roy. I think this is also a part of the exam. The old couple left on purpose, it must be to examine whether we can rely on ourselves to find clues to the next exam location. So, even if teacher Tianwei leaves by himself, it won't affect everyone's rush to the next examination room. That's right. But can you please don't delay my earning money? Roy stared at Kurapika blankly. The blonde boy seemed to be strangled by someone, and stopped abruptly. He didn't say a word. Only then did the blind man snort in satisfaction, cast a sidelong glance at Han Zhang and said, "Who told you I can't take it?" With a sound of, Roy threw his stick and knife on the ground, and Roy looked around the crowd, and said in a low voice, 10 million people, how many come, how many I will bring. Mr. Tianwei, are you sure? Bao Kuer raised his hand weakly. There are 25 people present. Except flying boats and large passenger planes, there is no means of transportation that can carry so many people. Is that so? Don't just watch the sky from a well, Bokuer. Roy glanced at Baokuer, and said quietly, the world is so big, there are so many wonders, there are always things you haven't seen, things you haven't experienced. So, who told you that you can't carry people without flying ships and large passenger planes? Roy glanced at the panel. Somersault cloud, if it is really the somersault cloud, he thought. The blind man looked up at the blue sky and opened his arms, a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth, and said softly, Yun Lai. Hula. There was a strong wind on the flat ground, and it flew up to 90,000 miles. I saw Roy, facing the blue sky, sweeping the sky. 9 days above. All the white clouds within a radius of 10 kilometers were taken into his arms by him. Only the bare blue was left, looking like a monotonous canvas. Everyone was surprised. Old man. Look, the clouds are gone. On the flying boat. Bana was lying on the porthole and was still admiring the clouds. Suddenly. She felt a blur in front of her eyes, and then she saw that the clouds in the sky poured into the battleship island, and disappeared without a trace. I really saw a ghost. What? The clouds are gone. What does it sound like to be surprised? Jenna is sitting on a chair reading the newspaper. When he hears Bana's voice, he turns his head impatiently. The sky is bare and blue. But the clouds are gone. This. The old man rubbed his eyes, repeatedly pulled the reading glasses on the bridge of his nose, and immediately couldn't sit still. He walked to the window in 2 steps in 3 steps, and stayed there with his old woman in a daze. Receive. At this moment, with Roy sweeping the sky, Baiyun blinked. The space was compressed into a yellow cloud. The camera hanging in the corner of the warship adjusted its position and clearly captured this scene. Behind it, whether it's the office of the vice president or the office of the president, it's as if someone has pressed the pause button, strangely fell into a dead-like silence. This. What the hell is this? In the president's office, the hand holding the lemon tea trembled, and there was a click, and the teacup fell to the ground and shattered into pieces. The silence was broken. Netero stroked his beard and raised his eyebrows in disbelief. So, this kid Roy has collected all the clouds in the sky. Could it be that the special yellow cloud cluster parked at his feet is his masterpiece after breaking the speed limit? But when the old man broke the limit back then, apart from the increase in speed, there was no such a big commotion. Not to mention, a new gold was condensed. That's right. It's Nyen Beast. Maha sat up straight. That pair of turbid, clear and half-clear old eyes stared at Somersault Cloud without blinking. Compressed to the extreme. It seems that a trace of consciousness was born in the cloud, and even Maha felt that the cloud had eyes, and when he saw him looking over, he stared at him curiously and said no. Comes out playful and spooky. It's time, the brat is right. Netero, we are all getting old. The remnants of the old era can no longer understand the young people of today. It's rare that Maha didn't satirize Netero. The president was silent for a moment, and fell into a long silence. As Maha said, whether it's Kim, Pariston or his unfilial son who was forced to raise, it seems that he is not in the same era. Unexpectedly, now there is another Roy. The 17-year-old, master limit breaker. What kind of concept is this? If that legendary Dong Fuli Shijian sees it, he will be ashamed of himself. It seems that I can't keep Jaeger's notes. Netero came back to his senses, glanced at Maha and said, you are blessed, old man. Thank you for having a wonderful grandson. Otherwise, the notes of my best friend will definitely be buried in ashes forever with his passing away. Hey, old man, I have already said that you can't keep it. Maha threw himself on the sofa again, and patted his belly proudly. Old man, I suddenly don't want to read any broken notes, to have my 17-year-old grandson who breaks the limit. Netero. Jaeger knows the truth, hearing this, he will definitely cry. Having a grandson and forgetting about a son. How can I fix it? An old thing is not a father. Netero was sore. He turned his head away, watching the blind Roy on the TV raised his feet and stepped into the somersault cloud. Turning around and smiling at the stunned candidates, he said, "What are you still doing? Pay the money and go to the cloud. Blind me. Take me to fly today." Oh, huh. Somersaulting clouds carried Roy around in the sky. The exaggerated speed than the flying boat made the eyes of all the candidates look straight. It's really unimaginable. If I didn't see with my own eyes, if someone like me can fly on the clouds, I would be the first to call him stupid. Leorio let out an exaggerated scream. One missed. The little kid with the hedgehog head jumped up, jumped onto the somersault cloud, and yelled and rolled and jumped on it, playing the second game. Little brat. Don't try to escape the order just because you know me well. Roy grabbed Gon by the back of his neck and lifted him up. Where's the money? Do you understand the rules of buying a ticket and boarding the train? Gon scratched the back of his head embarrassingly. He, uncle, I'm still a kid and I don't have any money. I'll pay you back when I earn money. Do you think it's okay? Make an IOU. Okay, when the time comes, even the principal with interest, I'll count you 100 million. Oh yeah. The silly child is immersed in the joy of playing with the cloud, and he still doesn't know what the interest of 90 million is compared to the principal of 10 million. Leorio and Kurapika looked at each other, and they both saw a trace of helplessness in each other's eyes. The good-for-nothing uncle rubbed his hands, licked his face and leaned closer to Kurapika. Kurapika, why don't you help me cushion it first? I really don't have any money on me. 50 million with the principal and interest. Kurapika slapped Leorio's head away, stepped on the somersault cloud, and said this sentence without looking back. Damn vampire. Kurapika, you've learned badly from Mr. Dao. That's it. Why do you have the face to call me a money-grubbing ghost? Leorio barely gritted his teeth and struggled on the spot for a long time. He roared, 5,000 is 5,000. As soon as he picked up the briefcase, he stepped on the somersault cloud angrily. Oh, sometimes I wonder if Mr. Tianwei is a character who came out of the comics. You can create such a cloud with just one sweep, which is no worse than some devil fruit abilities. That's why only Mr. Dao can draw such a masterpiece as The Pirate King. This 10 million is not for anything else, just to express my admiration for Mr. Tianwei. Has gone. Kurapika and Leorio are in front of the prototype. A few die-hard fans of Roy, headed by Bao Kuer, bought tickets and boarded the car one after another. In an instant, there were not many people left on the deck. Oh ho ho ho, Teacher Tianwei, I will pay 20 million. The familiar perverted laughter sounded. The hairstyle is combed to look like an adult. Hisoka stroked his hands behind his back, but he didn't see any movement. The next second, he had already appeared beside Roy. Almost pushed Gon aside. Step. Step. The clown shoes step on the somersault cloud, just like stepping on a ball of cotton, but it has an extra texture of stepping on the ground. Hisoka felt very novel. With a swish, he took out a playing card, put it on the tip of his tongue, licked it, and then threw it away, trying to touch the bottom of the somersault cloud. The clinker, a staff knife, was so immortal that it appeared at the landing point, and directly shot it into the sea. Yun also hurts, 20 million fines you to apologize to my Yun. Roy gave Hisoka a sideways glance. The fruit farmer grinned even happier. Yes. That's it. I like it when you punish me. Hey. It's really disgusting. Ilfan turned into Gitteracker, and followed Hisoka on the somersault cloud. Immediately took out my mobile phone and prepared to transfer money to Roy. Unexpectedly. Insufficient balance. Immediately, Ilfans were dumbfounded. A flash came to my mind. Silva once called and asked him for the password of the bank card. If you think about it with your ass, you can know who took the money away. So, Roy, my good brother, I support you to kill him. The nails on his face made a wow sound, and Ilfans almost lost their temper. Fortunately, his wife was next to him. With Hisoka's help, he finally got over the embarrassing situation where he almost couldn't pay for it. It's just that, in this way, he will not be able to lend a helping hand to his most precious brother. Staring at the familiar faces one by one, get in the car, Kahlua has nowhere to hide. Holding the skateboard, he said to Roy, brother, I also are. Oh? Where is there a mosquito screaming? Roy picked out his ears, looked at Kahlua with a half smile and said, I don't dare to call you brother. If you want to go to the cloud, you can. 200 million. You can't lose a cent. How can it be repaired? You are a double standard. Kahlua is angry. 200 million is 200 million. Don't worry if you have too many debts, and don't itch if you have too many lice. Just wait for me to pay you back. The white-haired stinky brother jumped onto the somersault cloud angrily, bumped into Gon's narrow grimace head-on, became even more angry and snorted coldly, and ran to the side, far away from his nasty Oni-chan. So far, almost everyone has chosen to get on the bus, including Hanzo, Qingli, Burns, Babu, Gusi, Greta and others. None of them are left behind. In the end, only the rookie killer Tonpa was left. With his back to Roy and the candidates, he tiptoed towards the other end of Gunkan Island. Damn Roy Zoldyck. I can't afford to mess with him, can't I hide? Isn't it just a broken cloud, who falls in love with whom? Lao Su Tonpa can't wait to be eliminated. Fight again next year. It's a pity. I appreciate your courage to fight again next year. But as the mascot of seeking good luck and avoiding evil, you want to walk away without saying a word. Isn't it too impolite? Phew, a familiar voice echoed. Tonpa ran away. You don't need to look back to know that damn Roy Zoldyck is entangled with him again. However, for Roy, whose speed has just broken the limit. The armed color thread is like a thunderbolt, flashing past, leaving the speed of sound far behind, and catching up with Tonpa in an instant, dragging him back at the speed of light. Damn it, Tianwei. I have no money, I don't deserve to be on your cloud, you're going to let me go, screaming and being picked up. Roy glanced at him, and said expressionlessly, I didn't intend to let you go to the cloud. Tonpa, don't be so sentimental, you are just a pendant. After finishing the words, Roy stomped his right foot lightly. Somersault cloud, let's go. Whoosh, now. The yellow cloud, carrying Roy and a group of examinees, chased after the flying ship that was about to disappear into the sky. Wow, I'm afraid of heights. Dao, sensei. Was wrong. I have money. I have money. Tonpa, who was hanging by the cloud by the armed sex thread, was almost scared to have a cerebral hemorrhage. Wow, ate a mouthful of air. It's a pity. The you a minute ago didn't say that. Roy lay on his side on the somersault cloud, propped his head on one hand, drank wine with the other, and looked at the blue sky, enjoying himself. But there is no leisure and elegance to talk to him. Somersaulting clouds are flying higher, faster, faster. Everyone who experienced flying on the clouds for the first time was all excited. Some people poked their heads out and looked down. Watching the warship island shrinking and shrinking, the direct point turned into a small black spot, disappeared in the eyes, and wowed. Some people are jumping and jumping like Gon. As if he is a monkey, calling somersaults, rolling, jumping and shouting. Some people took out their playing cards and wanted to play some pyramid games as usual. Unfortunately, in the face of somersaulting clouds' lightning speed, let alone wanting to stabilize the pyramids. Even people, if they pay attention, they will be blown down. The only regrettable thing is, some old men are destined not to see these wonderful pictures. With somersaulting clouds chasing the flying ship and disappearing into the sky. Even with a high-resolution camera, it is impossible to capture the figures of Rover and others. In the president's office, Netero sighed, and couldn't help feeling. I really envy these boys. When I was young, I didn't have them to pull the wind. In the morning, ride the clear wind to see the 9 days, and in the evening, sleep drunk and sleep among the colorful clouds and fly on the clouds. What kind of thing should this be? The value of 10 million flowers. Hey, are you envious? Maha patted his belly and winked at Netero. Please. Maybe I will let my grandson give you a ride. Ho 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 ho. Don't think too highly of yourself, you old man. Maybe, in the eyes of your grandson, you are just a hook. Netero gave Maha a blank look, and said quietly, I'm short of everything, but I don't need money. It's only 10 million, it's too late. It's someone who wants to ride the cloud, and is afraid that he won't be able to buy a ticket from his grandson. Tisk. It's really miserable for Grandpa to do this. Maha. Your skin is itchy, do you want to practice again? Old stuff. Practice and practice, who is afraid of whom? On that day, the headquarters building of the Hunter Association was shaken again for no reason. The movement was so loud that it spread to the vice president's office next door, and even Pariston was shocked. Hey, Lord Byongda, I want to report something to you. Perhaps, you will be very interested. What the hell is this guy Pariston up to? The Kajin Empire received a call from Pariston again. Byongda's mood is not so good. Hey, if you guys are still thinking about the 70 billion, I advise you to take it easy. No. Pariston squinted his eyes and smiled. Master Byongda, 70 billion is yesterday's price. If you want to be strong with Roy Zoldyck, you can't do without 100 billion. Little Juju Byongda was not surprised at all when a word was poked in his heart. They all said that Pariston was his spy in the Hunter Association than Yang Dian. He didn't know. But Yang Debi knew it better than anyone else. Pariston would not be anyone's spy from the beginning. A child mouse is a child mouse, and has never bothered to be anyone's tool. At most, it is just a relationship of mutual use. But 100 billion. If Pariston intends to kill acquaintance, just because he has a good relationship with him, then it can only be said that he only thinks well. Do you know what you're talking about? 100 billion? Almost equal to the total GDP of a poor country for a year. Why does he sell Roy Zoldyck so expensive? Just because he's 17 years old and triple breaking in the future, one person can be the enemy of one country. Pariston raised his eyes and looked at the TV. In the picture, the blind man is lying drunk on the clouds, dragging a team of candidates, flying to the sky, and drinking 2 sips of wine from time to time. The chic and wanton one is really enviable and jealous. So, Master Byongda, do you think I am satisfied with this answer? No one answered Pariston, and Kajin on the other end of the phone was directly silenced. Byongda also seemed to have evaporated, unable to utter a single syllable, and could only vaguely hear him pulling out a beard because he was too surprised, and whispering slightly. A 17-year-old, triple limit breaker, a pervert like a 4th prince. Celadahini twice cooked pork, the guy who heard Nyen in the morning and can consciously open aura nodes in the afternoon. I'm afraid he can't compare. This talent is indeed worth 100 billion. He Roy Zoldyck can be considered as an important member of our upcoming exploration of the Dark Continent. Bai Yangda took a deep breath, and said in a deep voice, Pariston, this task is entrusted to you. Later, 100 billion will be credited to your account. Sure enough, it is worthy of being Lord Byongda, who is backed by the local rich man Kajin Empire. Pariston's eyes flickered, and he smiled and said, I can't guarantee success, I can only do my best. Byongda waved his hand, but he said more confidently than Pariston, as long as the Zoldyck family has enough money, they can do whatever they want. Just tell him that when the time comes, as long as he nods, I will give you 100 billion more than Yongda. Hee, you are indeed richer than Lord Yongda. I will tell Roy Zoldyck exactly what I said. Beep, the phone hung up. Policestone poured a glass of red wine and shook it lightly. That's 200 billion inside and out, tisk. I'm afraid that the money will never come back when the time comes. Hula. A gust of cool wind blew in through the window. Didn't move half of the clouds. Under the same sky, there is a cloud, unknowingly catching up with the flying ship that escaped from the warship island. Old man, they seem to be catching up. Banner lay down in front of the porthole, looking back. The blind man was drinking, and seemed to have noticed her gaze. He glanced at her with a half smile. The next second, somersaulting cloud, woohoo, and gathered his strength. I saw. A golden thunder flashed. Roy led a group of candidates on a somersault cloud and flew side by side with the airship. Forcibly broke into the eyes of Jinabana and his wife. Old man. Teach you to run. If you open the hatch, see if Grandpa can do it or not, and you're done. Brother. How do you do it? Tell me in detail. Of course, there are children beside me. Greta, I advise you to restrain yourself when you speak. The upright martial artist Qingli. Also Bodro coughed dryly, and gave Greta a hard look. The dark skin. Searched all over the whole body for the only white place, the teeth. Really strong enough. So vigorous that meat and vegetables are not taboo, there is no one. However, the child you speak of refers to me. Sorry, but I can understand you. Kahlua put his arms around his head and blew a whistle without being too meddlesome. Suddenly met Roy's pale eyes, and immediately closed his mouth. Ye-Fan looked at the taste, took out a pin, and stabbed Hisoka. The pervert squinted at him, showed the playing card, stuck out his tongue and licked it, thinking to himself. Should I kill him? Or should I kill him? Finally, he laughed. Hey. There is no normal person in this group of guys. Hanzo saw everything in his eyes, and reminded the candidates. Everyone, shouldn't we take this opportunity to get back the 10 million deposit? Mada. Don't forget. The cloud we are stepping on is also charged. I have to do something, let's get back the blood. Baldy. What you said is very reasonable. Teacher Tianwei, could you please get closer to the flying ship? I'm going to hijack the plane today. I have to teach this old couple a lesson, and the two of them must give up the money. Yes. K him. Through the porthole, Jinabana and his wife could feel a strong resentment from the candidates. The husband and wife looked at each other, then sneaked another glance at Roy, and silently sighed in their hearts. Alas, Changa Roy Zoldyck. Defeat Roy Zoldyck. In the end, the couple still underestimated this. Even the flying Nyen beast, it seems that the other party can kill Lord Sayu and fight against the president without losing the wind. It is not unreasonable. Now, what should we do? Old man, do you still need to release the water? Bana watched the somersault cloud slowly approaching the flying boat, and turned his head to look at Jenna. Gina supported the reading glasses on the bridge of the nose, and there was a hint of ruthlessness in the old eyes covered with years of wind and frost. The president only said that Roy Zoldyck will be released alone, but he didn't mention the other candidates. So, I understand. Bana didn't wait for Jenna to finish speaking, took over his words, and pulled open the hatch of the flying boat. Hula. The gust of wind suddenly poured into the flying boat. The old lady showed a wave of transformations on the spot in front of a group of candidates. She shouted loudly, "Ha!" There was a sound. The top was directly torn into pieces by her swollen body. And she herself was watched by the shocked eyes of all the candidates. From a frail old woman, she turned into a burly woman with exaggerated muscles and her forearms folded, and she even felt like she could crush the heads of all the candidates. "Come here if you want money. Grandma, I have a kind heart, and I will take care of you to die happily." A group of candidates. You look at me. I look at you. Looking at each other. Only a certain, reckless, kid yelled, "Wow." Thump thump thump. Running forward with short legs. Nearly being swept into somersault by the strong wind. This idiot. Leorio grabbed Gon's arm, and gave him a slap on the back of the head with his backhand. The kid became honest immediately. Seeing this. A certain white-haired and stinky brother covered his mouth and was almost killed laughing. It's a pity. If it falls, it would be nice to kill this follower. However, schadenfreude is doomed to no good fruit. Roy rolled his pale eyes and swept across him inadvertently, suspending him at the same time. Look, fixed on Grandma Bana, and asked meaningfully, "Who are you, Bis G?" Granny Bana's expression was obviously startled. She looked at Roy unexpectedly and said, "Hee hee, I dare to let you know. Old lady, I once practiced with Master Bis G for a while. I really made you laugh." No wonder. Old Driver is the famous King Kong Barbie. Since you have practiced with her for a while, you should know. How much is her strength breaking the limit now? What is strength breaking the limit? A group of rookies who haven't even turned on aura nodes are confused. In front of Roy, Hisoka and Ilmi who can read. They are immature like chicks just out of their shells. They still have a smell of shit. Double. Grandma Bana didn't dare to lie to Roy, and said in a deep voice, "I heard Master Bis G mention. If there is no accident, she will stop at." The real King Kong Barbie is so unconfident about herself? Roy smiled lightly. I thought she had at least touched the threshold of triple limit breaking. It seems that I was thinking too much. After taking a sip of wine, Roy was somewhat disappointed. Bana and Gina, who rushed to the hatch, looked at each other, and they both saw a hint of speechlessness in the eyes of the other. Ahem, I think you have misunderstood, breaking limits. Triple limit breaker. Has never appeared in this world. According to Master Bis G, that is a domain that only gods can touch. And is there a god in this world? At least in the human world captive by Lake Mobius. As Bis G said, it seems that it has never appeared. Who can reach the realm of God, as strong as the strongest Netero? Even Maha, have never been able to reach. Maybe only the Ant King, who has gone through the nuclear explosion, and absorbed, Puff, and UBI, when he was on the verge of death, can touch this field. It is only the possibility of Roy's guess. Oh ho ho ho, God, I think it must be very delicious and tempting. With a sound of shua, Hisoka pulled the playing cards into an accordion shape. The corners of the pervert's mouth formed a deep versus shape, and he began to go crazy again. Fortunately, a good friend stopped him. Ilfan went down with a needle. Hisoka was honest immediately. Sometimes, people have to be a little self-aware that even Crollo may not be able to defeat you. It's better to focus on the present. The nails all over the face are blown by the strong wind. Creak, creak, sound. Ilmi stared at Hisoka blankly, his dead fish eyes turned up slightly. Looking at Roy. An absurd thought popped up in his mind. If human beings can really give birth to the existence of God one day, that person will not be the brother in front of him. He has never looked at him since he was a child. However, not necessarily, there really are gods in this world. Roy looked at the Banagina couple meaningfully. Where is it? Banagina was startled. If there really is a god in today's world, wouldn't the existing order be messed up? At least, if the news is true. V5, Bala, Kajin. All of them are going to explode. Who would allow a time bomb to hang over his head all the time? But, in fact, the time bomb has been hovering over the entire Zoldyck family, or the entire Republic of Batokia, and even the entire world since Jaeger Zoldyck brought back Naniga from the Dark Continent. Wishing machine, as long as you can pay enough, you can fulfill any wish. This is not an authority that can only be possessed by God. What else can it be? The sister that flashed in my mind was actually the figure of my younger brother Aluka. Roy took a sip of wine. His eyes were a little blurred. I have been away from home for so long, let alone miss him. He is one of the few good brothers who do not dislike his blind brother. Of course. It's time to check his attribute panel. With my current level, I might be able to see the tip of the iceberg of him. Roy squinted his eyes, and turned his back, leaving a broad back view for Barna and Gina couple. Actually, the answer is that the distance is far away and the distance is close. Of course it's only for me. Roy silently added in his heart. Gina Barna. After living for so long, I have never seen Zur who can play charades better than the two of them. This makes them somewhat ashamed as antique hunters. Ahem. Gina adjusted his collar indifferently. The button on the neckline flickered with a weak electronic arc. Finally, after dozens of minutes of black screen, the TV in the president's office reappeared. Netero, who was sipping tea quietly, and Maha, who was patting his stomach and pretending to be asleep, looked at each other inconspicuously when they heard God say. A legend who went to the Dark Continent and came back alive. The other is an old immortal who witnessed the disaster brought back by Jaeger. The knowledge and experience is far better than that of Barna's acceptance of the couple. Naturally, they immediately thought of Roy's phrase, far away in the sky, close in front of us, who is talking about. Hey, old man, you have been away from home for a long time. Shouldn't it be time to consider going home and have a look? Netero gave Maha a sideways glance. The little old man picked up a bag of potato chips, grabbed a bag of potato chips in the palm of his hand, and tore them open. Kaka, he chewed, and said nonchalantly, the child is doing well. Before I left home, I went to see the old man. Apart from clamoring all day long to see my grandson, there is nothing wrong with him. Oh? Netero was surprised. I didn't expect Roy to play with that guy from your family? Isn't he afraid that one day he will die in that hand? Maha glanced at Roy who was drinking on the somersault cloud, curled his lips and said, do you think that brat will be afraid? This seems to be true. Dare to kill the 12 earthly branches in the hunter test in front of his face. This kind of lawless madman seems to be born without knowing how to write the word fear. Forget it. Look. This old man can't stay here anymore. Netero drank the lemon tea in one gulp, stood up, stretched his muscles and bones. Glancing at Maha, he said, the next level is to defend the island, not far from the sea ahead. Old man, it's already here, why don't you follow me to meet your precious grandson? Hey. You are afraid that my grandson will destroy the balance of the exam. One glance pierced Netero's inner little 99. Mahashi patted his butt, stood up from the sofa, leaned his neck and killed all the potato chips. He said, let's go. Let the old man, I will take you to experience my grandson's cloud. You said that you seem to be able to take me to experience. Netero gave the proud Maha a white look, and said with a sneer, hey old man, I borrow the words of young people to say that I want a prostitute for nothing. It's not about the shame of the old man, but the shame of you. Tisk. Sitting on the cloud of my grandson, I have to apply to my grandson in advance. No matter how I think about it, I think it's outrageous. It's good to do some things. Do you think I am the kind of person who wants to lose face? Maha simply played a rogue, regardless of how exciting Netero's expression is behind him. He pushed open the office door first, and walked out with his hands behind his back. Duzi, let's go too. Netero sneered back at Maha with a cold snort, and left the office with the man with dough noodles in his sleeves. Together with Maha, he took the flying boat and rushed to the not-too-distant Vigil Island. It seems that there is another good show to watch. In the vice president's office on the first floor, Pariston heard the buzzing sound of the airship's propeller shredding the air. Pushing open the window, he watched Netero and Maha leave. The smile that never disappeared in the corner of his mouth became even deeper. He murmured in a low voice, 100 billion. Maybe I should find a chance to meet my toy. The airship flew higher and higher, and disappeared into the sky in an instant. Under the same sky, after a 2-hour, long-distance trek, the flying boat that the Banagina and his wife took finally came to the island of security. The following is the examination room for your 4th level. Facing the candidates, Barna focused on Roy and said, Examiner Liber, I'm waiting for you below, I wish you all the best. After finishing speaking, Bana and Gina bowed slightly to Roy, closed the cabin door, and disappeared from the sight of all the candidates. Damn it. My 10 million is in vain just like that. Damn old man, if I can't beat you, I will look good on you. If you have that leisurely mind, you might as well worry about it. The next test. Didn't you find out? The content of the test is getting more and more intense. Maybe this level is not good, we just want us to kill each other. He is a discerning person. Roy stood up slowly with a stick and knife in his hand. The candidates who were still discussing the next level of the test just now shut their mouths collectively. Gon, Kahlua, Kurapika, Leorio, Hisoka, Hanzo, Gitaraker, in the form of Ilmi. All looking at Roy. The blind man tied the wine gourd around his waist, stretched out his arms, stomped his feet lightly, and said, "Somersault Cloud. Go down." "Okay, master." Somersaulting Cloud flicked its tail, carrying the terrified crowd directly, and rushed downward. But circle circle. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. Dao-sensei, can I trouble you slow down? I'm sorry. I can't compare to a group of panicked losers. The look of a little kid with a hedgehog head yelling excitedly looks more majestic than them. Fortunately, this thrilling moment did not last long. The eyes were closed and somersaulted, and the cloud had already led the crowd and hovered in front of Liber. We met again. Coxcomb head. Roy stood on the somersault cloud with a stick and knife in his hand, directly higher than the opponent by 2 heights. So that Libo had to look up at him, feeling extremely uncomfortable. "I don't want to meet you." Liber pursed his lips cryptically, looked at Dudu Yun's body and said secretly, "This is what Uncle Jenna said. Roy Zoldyck's second, Nyen beast. With so many people on board, it can compete with the speed of flying ships. Maid is really enviable." "What? Want to sit? 100 million, I'll take you around." Roy looked at Libo and licked his lips, and said with a smile. It actually directly increased the ticket price by nearly 10 times. This made Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo, Bokuer and other candidates suddenly feel a sense of superiority. It seems that it is not unacceptable to pay 10 million for a flying. At least, for Liber, who needs 100 million words to get on the somersault cloud. They are undoubtedly much luckier. Ahem. Thank you, no need. Li Bojang suppressed the longing in his heart, coughed dryly, and declined Roy's kindness. He cast his eyes on Gon, Kurapika, Leorio, Hanzo and others behind him and said, "Next, the hunter test is only left with the 4th test and the last test. I am honored to be in charge of your 4th quiz after the 3rd quiz. Now." Liber snapped his fingers. A square draw box was pushed in front of everyone's eyes. "Then, please start drawing lots according to the order of arrival in the trap tower. A total of 24 qualifiers. I don't know who will be so unlucky to draw this guy Roy Zoldyck." Liber pushed the flamboyant pink glasses on the bridge of his nose and smirked secretly. A group of examinees who knew that this level turned out to be a hunting game also realized this problem and quietly glanced at Roy. The blind man imitated Libo and snapped his fingers, and said softly, "Somersault Yun, come back." Huang Chengchung's cloud cheered, "Okay," and plunged into Roy's body and disappeared. It actually threw a group of candidates on the ground. I didn't check for a while, and they all got a buttock. "Oh, what a pity, uncle, can I still play with Zuoyan in the future?" Gon made a sex call. With a flick of the fishing rod in his hand, he hooked a big tree next to him and landed firmly beside Roy. The little boy didn't seem to have had enough fun, and he looked at Roy pitifully. Unfortunately, before Roy could reply, Leorio, who fell from the sky, directly hit him on the back, and pressed him under him with a plop. Why doesn't it hurt?" Leorio climbed up from Gon guilty with a briefcase in hand, pretending that he didn't see it at all, and directly drew Kurapika's eyes. "Whether it hurts or not, you don't know in your own mind, right? The most important question now is, it is true to pray that you don't get Mr. Tianwei." Kurapika expressed everyone's aspirations in one word. If Roy is drawn, 3 points will be lost. This will undoubtedly increase the difficulty for the candidates who need to accumulate 6 points to pass. However, ho. You smoke your. Roy boy. Will not participate in the next test. The familiar voice resounded in the sky. A flying ship with the Hunter Association logo burst into everyone's eyes, and then 2 figures opened the hatch, stepped on the moon steps, and crossed the void. Like a banished immortal coming to the world, with his hands behind his back, he landed slowly. As soon as he appeared, there was an unbelievable exclamation. "Grandpa. Damn. He's not at home, lying on a rocking chair and watching cartoons. How could he be here?" A certain white-haired and stinky brother is like a stressed little white cat. His hair exploded in an instant, and he was frightened. Beside him, not far away, Ilmi, who turned into Gitaraker, squinted his eyes for a moment. Ripples in the eyes of the dead fish. Obviously, like his favorite brother, he was shocked. "Ho ho. Roy, Grandpa, I miss you so much, little."